5 o'clock on September 6th. And I'll ask the secretary to please call the roll.
Commissioner Thompson.
Here.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Here.
Commissioner Olson.
Here.
Commissioner Musich. Commissioner Menz.
Here.
Commissioner Elper.
Here.
Commissioner Abeni.
Here.
Vice President Crudup. President Forney.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. I will acknowledge that Commissioner Musich is away and that we are also, though, joined by Director of Human Resources, Brooks, who will be assisting Secretary Ringel. So I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to the approval of, we have 3 sets of minutes. So the first one, August 17th. Would anybody like to move that, please?
I'll move the minutes from August 17th. Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That action carries. On to January 3rd. Anybody want to move that, please?
I'll move yep. Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That action carries. On to our next set on August 16th.
I'll move the minutes of August 16th, 2023.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That action carries also. Any reports of appointees to outside boards, commissions, or committees? Not seeing any lights. Okay, we will move then on to our consent business, and that can a motion from the consent business.
I'll move the slate resolution 2023-166 and 2023-167.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That action carries as well. On to standing committees. We're going very nicely here. Admin and Finance.
I will move Resolution 2023-157, resolution approving a professional services agreement with McMonagle Architects for architectural services at the Theodore Wirth Home and Administration Building and National Registrar of Historic Places structure, located in Lindale Farmstead Park in the amount of $47,000.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Not seeing any lights. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That action carries. On then to a number of leases, which we will need a roll call for each.
Resolution 2023, I will move -157, resolution approving a lease agreement with Mark McNally, leasing commercial space at 3104 Pacific Street North, Unit 200, located within Above the Falls Regional Park for a 1-year term commencing on September 15th, 2023 at the rate of $600 per month gross, including utilities and taxes.
Second.
All right. Secretary, please call the roll.
Commissioner Thompson.
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Aye.
Commissioner Olson.
Aye.
Commissioner Musich, absent. Commissioner Menz.
Aye.
Commissioner Elper.
Aye.
Commissioner Abeni.
Aye.
Vice President Crudup, absent. President Forney.
Aye.
You have 7 ayes, 2 absent.
Thank you. That action carries. On to the next lease.
I will move Resolution 2023-148, resolution approving a lease agreement with Matthew Oleg, leasing commercial space at 3104 Pacific Street North, Unit 302, located within the Above the Falls Regional Park for a 1-year term, commencing September 15th, 2023 at the rate of $920 per month gross, including utilities and taxes.
Second.
Okay. Secretary, please call the roll on this.
Commissioner Thompson.
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Aye.
Commissioner Olson.
Aye.
Commissioner Musich, absent. Commissioner Menz.
Aye.
Commissioner Elper.
Aye.
Commissioner Abeni.
Aye.
Vice President Crudup, absent. President Forney.
Aye.
You have 7 ayes, 2 absent.
That action carries. On to the next lease agreement.
Resolution 2023-151, I would like to move a resolution approving the lease agreement with Emerald Hulsing, leasing commercial space at 3104 Pacific Street North, Unit 305, located within the Above the Falls Regional Park for a 1-year term commencing September 15th, 2023 at the rate of $480 per month gross, including utilities and taxes.
Second.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Commissioner Thompson.
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Aye.
Commissioner Olson.
Aye.
Commissioner Musich, absent. Commissioner Menz.
Aye.
Commissioner Elper.
Aye.
Commissioner Abeni.
Aye.
Vice President Crudup, absent. President Forney.
Aye.
You have 7 ayes, 2 absent.
Thank you. That action carries. On to the next lease agreement.
I'd like to move Resolution 2023-149, resolution approving a lease agreement with Matthew Oleg, leasing commercial space at 3104 Pacific Street North, Unit 307, located within the Above the Falls Regional Park for a one-year term commencing September 15th, 2023, at the rate of $325 per month gross, including utilities and taxes.
Second?
The secretary, please call the roll.
Commissioner Thompson.
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Aye.
Commissioner Olson.
Aye.
Commissioner Musich, absent. Commissioner Menz.
Aye.
Commissioner Alper.
Aye.
Commissioner Abeni.
Aye.
Vice President Crudup, absent. President Forney.
Aye.
You have 7 ayes, 2 absent.
That action carries, and so the last lease agreement.
I would like to move Resolution 2023-150, resolution approving a lease agreement with Matthew Oleg, leasing commercial space at 3104 Pacific Street North, Unit 308, located within the Above the Falls Regional Park for a one-year term commencing September 15th, 2023, at the rate of $1,100 per month gross, including utilities and taxes.
Second?
Thank you. The secretary, please call the roll.
Commissioner Thompson.
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Aye.
Commissioner Olson.
Aye.
Commissioner Musich, absent. Commissioner Menz.
Aye.
Commissioner Alper.
Aye.
Commissioner Abeni.
Aye.
Vice President Crudup, absent. President Forney.
Aye.
You have 7 ayes, 2 absent.
Okay, that action carries. On to our next resolution.
I would like to move Resolution 2023-153, the first reading of the resolution amending Chapter 17 of the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board Code of Ordinances, the criteria-based system for capital and rehabilitation neighborhood park project scheduling.
Second?
Thank you. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, the secretary, excuse me, no. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. No?
Just read it. It's been just a reading.
Okay, so wait, no action needed. Okay, thank you so much. Okay. All right, on to the next resolution.
Resolution 2023-160. I will move. It's a resolution directing staff to require the Board of Commissioners approval for any action relating to an encroachment immediately adjacent to water bodies, including an action to issue a construction permit, beginning on the date following the approval of this resolution and extending for a period of not more than 365 days.
Second?
No roll call on this, right? No roll, okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That action carries. Whoa, something's wrong with this picture. Anyway, okay, on to unfinished business. We have a couple resolutions. Somebody would like to read our next resolution, please?
I'm getting bored. I'll read over here. I'll move Resolution 2023-161, resolution amending the request to the Board of Estimate and Taxation to set the maximum property tax levy for the 2024 budget at an estimated amount of $82,652,380, an increase of 5.35%.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on this? Any presentation? I think we would like to have a presentation. Take it away, Director Wiseman.
President Forney and Commissioners, I'm here this evening to request your consideration of Resolution 2023-161. This will align our request to the Board of Estimate and Taxation with what the mayor recommended for the Park Board in his budget address on August 15th. So as a reminder, the mayor recommends a maximum property tax levy for the Park Board, but the Park Board requests our maximum tax levy. The BET will ultimately set the maximum tax levy, and then we approve and adopt our tax levy in December. So this is the second year of the city's 2-year biennial budget cycle. The mayor still recommends and the council still approves budgets each year. The 2024 amounts will be appropriated by the council in December. The 2024 amounts in the last adopted budget were the basis for the 2024 supplemental budget. So the plan that they The plan that was adopted in 2023 is the base that they started from this year. Because of the presented plan, this year's budget process was more focused on emergent and required spending. The supplemental budget process focused on reforecasting of revenues and accounted for new state aids. The next 2-year budget cycle will begin in 2024, and it will cover the years 2025 and 2026. So as a reminder, we were not included in the planning of a biennial budget when the city first adopted their biennial budget process. We continue to include system equity investment and board priorities in our 5-year financial projections, and we communicate those needs to the Board of Estimate and Taxation, the mayor, and city staff. The MPRB plans to participate in the next 2-year budget cycle beginning in 2024 to cover years 25 and 26. So in the mayor's recommended budget, the mayor supported our current service level ask. It supported the youth investment progression up to the $2.6 million, and it supported strategic direction D, care for park assets. That's the item that was changed, and I'll show that on the next slide. Or not the next slide. The impact to the city's total property taxes impact of 6.2% will increase residential homestead properties estimated at with the chart below. So you'll see that residential properties are being impacted at a higher rate than commercial properties. That's what the current estimate is. And even though commercial properties and homestead properties are increasing in value, the commercial properties aren't increasing as quickly. So this request before you to amend your maximum property tax levy request would amend it to $82,652,380. That's a 5.35% increase. And again, as a reminder, for strategic direction D, care for park assets, we recommended 3 positions, and the mayor is recommending 1 position. So that's the difference between the previous request that you passed and the amendment that's before you today. This is, again, our 5-year financial projections, and you'll see the 5.35% increase for 2024 with 1 position added instead of 3. And then you have system equity investment that is happening in 25, 26, and 27. So those property tax estimates are up over 5%. And then again, just reminding you that we have the gap, the youth investment gap that we will need to solve for as the ARPA funds go away in 2025 and we don't reach the full $2.6 million until 2027. Also in the mayor's budget, recommended budget, we have our NPP 20 Neighborhood Park Capital Program. Again, we passed concurrent resolutions that guaranteed our annual amount for 2022 to 2026. And the board and the city will need to begin negotiations in 2025 to set the guaranteed minimum amount by December 15th of 2025 for the years 27 to 31. Also included in the mayor's recommended budget is an increase to our Parkway paving. So you will see that in 2024, there is no increase for '24. It's the same amount that we have been getting at $750,000. And then you'll see the progression from 25 up to 29, where it reaches 2.7 million. And I'll just point out, when we do these concurrent ordinances, the city really likes to have flexibility. So you'll notice in 2024, when they are recommending their budget, they're recommending a city general fund transfer for Parkway paving rather than net debt bonding. So they like to have a little flexibility to be able to manage how they provide that money for the parkways. You'll see our lighting is unchanged for the first 4 years and goes up to $400,000 in years 28 and 29. So our stormwater utility fee, Schedule 8, the reference to the work that is being done around the stormwater fee is noted in the budget book at this point, just as a sentence here, with the 16 cents providing 501,000. I can tell you that we are currently working with the city on amending Schedule 8 to provide more transparency regarding the agreements that we're working on. I received a draft this afternoon and have replied with some additional edits for that draft. The next steps is you will consider amending the tax levy request this evening. Next week on September 13th, the Board of Estimate and Taxation will hold their public hearing regarding the maximum tax levies, and the city and the park board will be presenting our budget overviews at that meeting as well. And then on September 20th is when the Board of Estimate and Taxation sets the maximum property tax levy. And again, on October 18th is when the superintendent will present the 2024 recommended budget. So I'm available for any questions.
Commissioner Bennett.
Thank you, President Forney, and thank you, Director Wiseman. I wonder if you could clarify a little bit the Schedule 8 stuff, because so the Schedule 8 is the fee schedule inside of the budget book, but it's also the fee schedule for city fees.
Mm-hmm.
And it says 16 cents here as a note, but what will the corrected Schedule 8 roughly look like, and what is the dollar amount of that utility rate for the park board?
President Forney and Commissioner Benny, Deputy Ringgold, Secretary Ringgold is going to be doing an update on the stormwater process after this. Are you going to be addressing that question?
I can certainly wait.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Menz.
Thank you for that report. Can you explain again the gap? I know that there's a gap for the youth investment. Can you explain to me again, or us again, what the plan is for those years where there's that gap?
President Forney and Commissioner Menz, we actually have a couple of different ways to solve for this. When we get into the 2025 budget process, we could request the Board of Estimate and Taxation to increase our property taxes to the 2.6 million in 2025 so that we don't experience those gaps. The other options would be if we had general excess fund balance available, we might allocate general fund excess fund balance as a one-time to cover that gap. And if we don't have enough, it could be a combination of both, or it could be a request to the city to provide us with one-time funding to close that gap. So we intend to close that gap in 25 and 26, but it's going to take some work and communication between us and the city.
And I guess I'm wondering, and the gap it's not $2.6 million. It's not the full 2.6
Right.
million. It's 260,000, or is that what it was looking like?
When we entered into the agreement for the youth investment, it was $2.6 million total. 1.3 million was property taxes in that first year, and 1.3 million was the ARPA funds in that first year. And then the city programmed out an increase of $260,000 annually until we reached property taxes of the $2.6 million. The issue is that they program that out to 2027, and ARPA goes away in 2025.
Okay.
So that's why we have a gap in 25 and 26.
Thank you.
Oh, question. Commissioner Bennett?
Oh, sorry. I do have another question, just for transparency's sake, and actually I'd like to understand it a little bit better. One of the things that was driving our request was an increase in inflation, okay? But also fees, and actually specifically fees that we pay to the city of Minneapolis to the tune of like $226,000 or something like that.
That's correct.
So the mayor did grant us the ability to pay those fees. But what is that because we basically, there are some shared services between the organizations? Is that, what are some of the elements of that fee, if you don't mind me asking?
President Forney and Commissioner Benny, a good portion of that is the city finance function. As we are a semi-autonomous body, we don't have our own treasury function. The city has the treasury function. We also utilize their, by city charter, we are required to use the city procurement department for our procurement, so we have to pay for that. They charge us a little bit for the assessor's office. They charge it, so there's a multitude of services that we are charged for in this general fund overhead fee.
Vice President Crudup.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. So if we can just go back to where you talked about the mayor approved one position in the 3 positions that we proposed. In that restructuring, I guess, of the approval of the mayor, what does that do to us from an operations perspective? Like, how will we carry out the work that we are proposing to do with 2 less bodies?
President Forney and Commissioner Crudup. It does impact what we had planned for our care of park assets. We requested 3 professional staff last year to help implement both our NPP 20 and our park dedication funds and our bonding. And then our repair and replacement programs. And that wasn't funded at all last year. So we had to delay that work. And you all see that at times when projects aren't coming online as quickly as we would like them to. With the vacancies we have and the inability to add positions. So in this budget, there is 1 position recommended by the mayor. And again, the 2 other positions would either need to be funded through cuts within our own budget somewhere else, or it delays it to the next year.
Okay, thank you. Going back to the gap that we have from ARPA 2025 through 27, specifically as it relates to the youth, and sort of, what Commissioner Menz was saying, if for some reason we don't get this funding, are we making contingency plans for those same cuts? that you hinted at potentially for funding positions, are we making sure that we don't cut services that impact our communities that need and utilize our parks more often?
Yes, President Forney and Commissioner Crudup. If you remember, the $2.6 million equated to 22 full-time positions, which are hired and working. And so, yes, we will identify a funding source so that we are not having to hold vacancies open and we are not having to cut any or lay off any positions that we hired.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other, oh, Commissioner Menz for a second time.
And just a point of, and there's going to be, I think we're having a report on what the impact of that $2.6 million, is that correct? That's coming up in a future meeting pretty soon.
Any other questions? Okay, with that then, we have a resolution then before us. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That action carries. Now we're on to discussion items. First one is by Deputy Superintendent Ringel about Parkway and stormwater funding initiatives update. And by the way, we have a open time in 4 minutes, so just for everybody to be aware. I know she's not going to whiz right through it. And then we also have a public hearing at 5:45, just for everybody to be aware.
President Forney, Commissioners, thank you for having me here to give this update. This is Parkways and Stormwater is something you've been working on quite passionately for a little bit over a year and a half. Earlier this year, you did pass resolutions asking the city to consider increasing the funding that they allocate towards parkways, as well as to add funding to the stormwater utility fee to help address stormwater infrastructure specifically owned, maintained, operated by the Minneapolis Park Board, and that we are have certain liabilities to and responsibilities to by our NPDES permit. I'm presenting today, but there's a whole staff team, both on the stormwater and the parkways. I know President Forney acknowledged them at last meeting, but there's a really amazing team who's been helping getting us to this spot. Julie did a lot of the lifting, telling you what's already in the budget, so I'm going to give you kind of the highlight on that and talk about next steps. So in parkways, we have found some common ground here with the city of Minneapolis. Starting in 2025, there will be increase coming into the parkway infrastructure. Right now, by 2027, it caps off at about $2,750,000 a year. That number is still a little bit in flux. There is some consulting work happening right now, funded by the city of Minneapolis, that will actually determine the exact top number and then what that escalating factor will be after that. So that is a projected placeholder, but it could be more than that. I guess it technically could be less than that too, but we would anticipate that it would be at least that or more. The conversations we've been having with the city talks about us not only identifying what that top number is, but continuing to think about what those escalating factors are. We've identified in this work that neither the city or the park board have a true reconstruction plan considered for parkways. So PB001 is actually considered more of a rehab fund, something that goes in, replaces surface, takes care of ADA compliance issues, does that type of work, but it doesn't actually do the full tear up and reconstruction. And we now have at least 3 parkway segments that are falling into that category. So that is a category that will likely grow for us and an area that we will need to collectively look for funding. And part of this agreement with the city is that we'll identify what that funding need is together and start looking for funding together on that. And creating what would be a 6-year CIP to start addressing it. How am I doing? I think I will stop there.
Okay.
And I will put up
Thank
the open time slide.
Okay, I will open our open time. I believe we do have some speakers, so anyway, I will read the rules. Thanks to all of you who want to share your thoughts and ideas with us during open time. Before we start, I want to provide an abbreviated version of the open time board rules. All individuals wishing to speak may call in before noon the day of the meeting to be placed on the agenda, or can sign up on the board meeting at the board meeting prior to the start of open time. I will be calling people on the sign-up list only. Open time for public input shall not exceed a total of 15 minutes, with a time limit to it be allocated by myself, the president. Please watch the timer over here to be considerate of others, and stay within your allotted time. During open time, public testimony will be given without debate, and only clarifying questions from the board will be allowed. Two types of items are not appropriate during open time in order to protect the privacy of all, and those are pending litigation and personnel issues. Please refrain from commenting on these specific personnel issues. We will not tolerate discriminatory and/or harassing words directed at anyone, so please ensure that all your comments you make tonight comply with that policy. This board made the decision many years ago to operate under Robert's Rules of Order. Under our Robert's Rules of Order, the ceding of time to another person is not allowed, so only those signed up to speak may speak only for their allotted time amount. We also request that each speaker provide his or her name and address, and we have, let's see now. We have 8 speakers, so I'm going to allow 2 minutes each for each person, and I will read off a couple of the names. One of them is Kai Banker, will be the first person, and then the next person to be keyed up will be Patty West. Is Kai Baker here? Kai, coming once, coming twice, coming 3 times? Okay, Patty West, are you here? Patty, please join us, and then the next person will be Mitchell Hansen. Welcome.
Thank you. Do you want me to say my name again? I'm Patty West.
Please.
Do you want, I can't remember, 4922 Russell. I live in Shingle Creek neighborhood in North Minneapolis. And I'm here mainly because of that. I'm on the neighborhood board in Shingle Creek. My wife and I have lived there for 16 years. We're very involved in our neighborhood. And we were very involved in the North Service Area Master Plan design in 2018, setting up improvements for our park, which is Creek View. We went to many meetings, got a beautiful plan, and that was the last I heard of it. Now, I did communicate with Adam Arvidsson, who was our Director of Strategic Planning at the time. I don't think he's here anymore. Oh, I tried. And he answered. And he kept saying it was going to happen, it was going to happen. I think it was supposed to happen in 2023. Well, nothing has happened. It is 2023. And I think my frustration is, I lived for 30 years in South Minneapolis, and my kids were raised there. They went to Minneapolis parks in the south. What we have for parks in the north is not, it's really a joke. Our neighborhood parks are so unattended, not by the people, but by the park board. Our facilities are horrible. Right now, we have a lot of problems in our middle school in particular that's hooked up to our Creekview Center. That's Olson. We also have Jenny Lind, another school. These Minneapolis schools are in trouble. And we've had a lot, this summer was a nightmare. There were cars stolen, shooting, I mean, I don't need to tell you. I'm done.
Yes.
Sorry.
And
Anyway.
I'm going to suggest, if you would like to, Adam, Director Arvidsson is over here and can maybe follow up with you
Good.
on your concerns. Appreciate it, Patty. Next one is Mitchell Hansen, and then after that is Patrice Casco.
Hello, thank you, Mitchell Hansen. I saw the unfinished business section. It seems you've forgotten to include finding a solution to the targeted oppression of BIPOC homeowners on the north side and identifying funding sources for relief and repairing the harm that you've caused. So much attention has been on capital improvement projects when the people that needed the most are not really getting any supports. I'm here to talk about conflicts of interest actually though today really. So the Minneapolis Tree Advisory Commission, as you know, was kind of operating on its own without bylaws until we said something. Let's just go through some of these people. Peter McDonough, Kestrel Design Group, has 4 different contracts with the park board, one of which, or at least 2, while he was on the commission. Probably a conflict of interest, I'd say. Also, he's the founder, he literally created the entire system for the tree trench credit methodology that calculates stormwater runoff, meaning he designed the city forest credit system to calculate it. In San Francisco, he went with Greg McPherson to help you about this before we got into this contract. And also, you've gotten 19 grand out of that deal so far. Don Willicke, Tree Trust, you have contracts with him. Mary Bulla, the most interesting one. So Stephanie Musich, Forney, and Brian Rice signed off on it, but I'm pretty sure you're all well aware that she has a land easement with you. It's Firefly Woods Conservation Easement. Probably a conflict of interest, and I think it's pretty ridiculous that her conflict of interest, part of her form, was missing. Literally not on her application. You removed it. Somehow it was removed. It's a glitch or something, but it was not there. It's very concerning. I could go on and on and on, but I'm just wondering why. We've been here for how long? There's been no talk about how to help people. There's conflicts of interest left and right. Literally, you know this woman had an easement with you. How is that not a conflict of interest? I think you need to revisit the Tree Advisory Commission and really question who you're listening to, because we've got some real serious problems coming again, and we're not going to take this again. Like, it's time for action. This is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Thanks.
Thank you, Mitchell. Patrice Haskell is, and then after that is Elena Holster or Plaster.
All right, hi, I'm Patience Cazzo. I live at 3150 Excelsior here in Minneapolis. Thank you so much for caring about our parks. I really appreciate the work that you put in. I'm a bicyclist and a gardener at Siouxland Community Garden. And I testified before, but I wanted to bring some more points. I'm against the bike trail that Hennepin County is proposing to pave through the community garden. I do want more access to the Midtown Greenway, but I'm not really sure why Hennepin County would propose a bike trail through such a spectacular community garden instead of using their own land to provide access to the Midtown Greenway. Now, the county owns most of the land along the Greenway, and they are choosing not to provide access on any of their property, instead claiming that Siouxland Garden is the only place to provide paved access. Despite Hennepin County's stubbornness on this issue, they do have the means, the ability, and the authority to move the bikeway to another location. There are plenty of other options. There are a lot better options, including providing access from the south side of the Greenway. And the county says it won't budge on its outdated policy to preserve the south side of the Midtown Greenway for future rail, even though they recently ignored this policy by providing south side access at 35W, where it was recently reconstructed. This policy means the community cannot have access to any of this land for a very long time because the county wants to wait for a rail line. And if you know anything about rail projects, they take at least a decade, sometimes 2, to build. There are no plans currently in the works, so how long does that mean we don't have access on the Greenway from the south side? We all want more and better access to the Midtown Greenway, and Hennepin County does have other options than paving through a beloved community garden. Siouxland Gardeners have proposed a compelling design for access at Grand Avenue. You can find it on the Siouxland Gardens website. And the Grand Avenue access gives us access where pedestrians already exist, where there's a crosswalk. There was a bikeway just completed on Grand Avenue, and it aligns better with the county's stated goal of connecting better to the Greenway. Please join us for the Midtown Greenway Glow. We'll be there on Saturday from 4 to 9 or 10. Thank you.
Thank you. Elena, and then after that is Al Nolan.
Hello, my name is Elena Plaster. I've lived in Minneapolis my entire life, and I'm a student. For an hour today, we talked to Ryan Schwingle from the DNR. He informed us that he officially confirmed that linden borer has been discovered in South Minneapolis. Linden borer has the potential to be as destructive as emerald ash borer, and has already wiped out the linden population in Mankato. As verified by Mr. Schwingle, this is a potential catastrophe with a growing threat, as linden trees are over 10% of our urban canopy and provide incredible benefits. It is high time that the public is alerted of this threat and threats of these proportions in the future, as to prevent the repetition of disastrous history. Thank you.
Thank you. Al, and then after that is Ted Johnson.
Hello, my name is Al Nolan. So I already do programming with Minneapolis Park and Rec. So I've partnered and collaborated with guys for the past 3 years running summer programming. So I have over 10 years in experience in education, and I know, our community is in a crisis right now. And with schools starting back up with all the turnover in leadership, I'm trying to get ahead of it, and I've been presenting like 7-month after-school program plans to combat some of the community violence and also address students with the restorative circle, social-emotional learning, those different things. We actually already have a Minneapolis police officer that is part of our team, one of our sports directors, so we're also looking to involve her to build community trust, to try and bridge the gap between community and police as it's tough right now. But however, I've been kind of struggling with communication with Minneapolis Park and Recs, and it's been a challenge, and all my effort has been spent on trying to figure out how to communicate with you guys to pitch the plan, and it's kind of hindered me from being able to organize and come up with the best type of programming and curriculum for our scholars and our students in the neighborhood. And so I just really wanted to come here and let our voices be heard, as I know a lot of times a lot of people in the community that I've talked to, some of my mentors, feel like our voices go unheard and are invisible. And I actually appreciate Mr. Menz here. He helped me out to get to Botanu when I was going through some red tape, and we were able to facilitate some great programming. We came through with everything that we said we were going to do. And so we're looking to do the same thing. And one of the things with me is also I'm bringing in other resources and community assets who are looking to sponsor and provide, donations to even other programs within Minneapolis Park and Recs. And part of getting the kids there also is to help them become aware of the other programs that you guys are facilitating. And so we've served over 125 scholars in the past 3 years. And whatnot. So kind of similar to what I believe her name was Patty was saying. I'm just trying to get ahead of it because I know there's going to be a lot of violence in the community. And I already have friends and family members and students who are buried across the street due to gun violence from Falwell. So I just want to show up today. Thank you.
Al, I'm going to connect you with our Assistant Superintendent of Recreation, Mimi Kalb over there. She can give you a card and you can connect. So next on our list is Ted Johnson, and after that is Dan Miller. And then we have a few minutes before we have an opened a public hearing.
Hi. 2018, you guys put together park concept plans in the Southwest Service Area, in particular Parade Park. You wanted to cover fields. You recognize there's a lot of wasted space. The Parade Ice Arena is heavily used, and you wanted to add on to that project. Since December 12th, at a Zoom call with Mike Schroeder, the cost of a dome has gone from between 1.3 million to now it's approaching $5 million. So the sense of urgency behind either A, partnering with the city, we've already had contingent conversations with the Wolves Links Foundation, the Minnesota Vikings and NFL Flag, in addition to, you look at soccer clubs like Minneapolis United, who just won a national championship, and Helix Intra, who all have to trek all of their families and kids out to the suburbs because there's nothing in the city of Minneapolis that they can call home that's a covered field. These guys work out of their trucks and out of the front seats of their cars. They don't even have office space. So I have a solution. Financially, it will cost the city nothing. Ultimately, it comes down to the partnership and then how much time that we end up negotiating or figuring out that we give time back to residents of the city free of charge.
Thank you, Ted. And, wherever Assistant Superintendent Kalb is, I think, out in the hallway, she would be an appropriate person to speak to and everything. Next person is Dan Miller, and like I say, in a couple minutes, we've got a public hearing.
All right. Thank you. Commissioners, my name is Dan Miller, and I live in Wyndham Park, northeast Minneapolis, and I'm here just to support the resolution before you to the end of the consent, under consent business for the design services for the bridge and landscape architectural design services at the 26th Avenue Overlook. I'm a member of the Great Northern Greenway, and there's been many people before me, many boards commissions before this that have worked towards this goal, and it's really, really super to see, in my brief time of 7 years on this, to see this important step start to take place. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, and I'm just going to go back and ask if Kai Banker has shown up. Not seeing Kai, and then we'll close our open time. And being it's timely, whatever, I will just say that as far as the public hearing, there is nobody who has signed up, but I will open up the public hearing if there's anybody who wishes to speak to the amendment to our ordinance, Chapter 17. Not seeing anybody. Not seeing anybody. Not seeing anybody. I will then close the public hearing. Okay, so back then to our full agenda. We are in the midst of Parkway and Stormwater Funding Initiative.
All right, Commissioners, thanks for having me back. We're on to stormwater. So as Director Wiseman indicated, we are anxiously awaiting an update to Schedule 8 within the city's, actually the mayor's recommended budget. At this point, it's primarily just a technical piece being updated to reflect conversations that we've had that actually show, again, some real commonalities and some common vision around supporting the stormwater system and water quality within the city of Minneapolis. So that's great, and I think it's a great testament to much of your good work to help educate and share with people where we're at. So currently, as kind of first step of this, park staff and city staff are working on a city-led consultant project, or a city-funded but a co-led consultant project to do mapping of the infrastructure within the system. That's coming out of the city's 2023 dollars, and we're a co-lead on that. What we're looking forward to is that starting in 2024, the city budget will reflect that we will be receiving about $500,000, so $500,000 towards our stormwater program, in addition to the $824,000 that we currently have access to do monitoring and education. Those two pieces are combined. That ends up to be about 42 cents per stormwater unit, which equates to about $5.04 for an average household per year, and establishes then within the city's Schedule 8 a separate line item for the park board regarding stormwater fees. So that is a step forward, and it removes that reimbursement process that we had for that monitoring and the education piece, which while fantastic and provided really great outcomes, was a little bit difficult for staff to manage and provide kind of ongoing thinking around staffing levels and how they would manage those dollars. So that will be a great step forward. We anticipate that as we move forward, there will be annual adjustments to this based on the information that we gather and what we learn about the system and the overall program we develop. And we anticipate that being something that we will include in our stormwater ordinance, which I'll get to in just one moment. But first, before I go there, one of the things that was really important to the city in these conversations is that we do not supplant any existing funding that we are using to support anything regarding stormwater or water quality within the system. So they're really asking that what they are adding to this is additive, not something that replaces or allows us to redistribute dollars into other spaces. So what happens next? We are currently working on 2 concurrent ordinances. So concurrent ordinances, at least in my time here, Brian Rice has more time here. He might have other tools that he'd recommend, but I think he feels pretty great about this. Concurrent ordinances have tended to be one of the strongest tools we have in terms of having a relationship with the city around particular topics. We have 2 right now. One of them is for our parkland dedication, and the other one is for our MPP 20. And basically, an ordinance takes you to the point where in order to change that, you need to go through through committee, 2 readings, a public hearing, and both agencies have to change it to be different. So it creates a level of public visibility and it creates a level of transparency that is really important. And as we've all learned, helps it not get lost in the shuffle over time in terms of how some of these things can do when they're simply just like a council or a board level action over time. So we are working on 2 of them. The draft is now in the city's hands at the moment. We're working to get those in place by January 1st, 2024. So we are anticipating bringing these before you and city, bringing them before the city council yet this year. And that is the update. So what questions do folks have?
Any questions, folks, on this awesome step we have? Any questions? Oh my, okay. Well, all I can say is hoorah. Oh, excuse me, Commissioner Abene.
I don't have a question, but I want, and I don't want to steal any thunder from the president of the board, but, you know, the Deputy Superintendent Ringgold talked about how hard the staff has worked on this, and it's certainly true. And I mean, nimble and responsive and data-driven. It's just been really great to see. I also have to really say thank you to the Deputy Superintendent and the Superintendent and Brian Rice for all their hard work on this. Honestly, it's just been, I don't mean to steal your thunder if you were going to do that, President Forney, but I just can't thank you enough. You've kept this in the fore and taken every chance at every party to talk about it, I'm pretty sure. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you so much. I also don't want to steal any thunder, but I wanted to take a moment to express my gratitude as well. I mean, it is truly incredible, but you said it better, but my light was on, so I'm just adding to it. So thank you, truly.
Yeah, I guess gratitude is what we're all sharing. And I'll just say very deeply, yes, thank you to both Jennifer and Al and Brian, but also to this board for professionalism, maturity. I mean, there's so many words I could use. I'm just so frickin' proud of you all. And I think it's really pretty amazing. The city has heard us, and big time. So it's, as the superintendent said, this is our legacy. So we then now have another study, we have, an update, our 2023 Park Police Department update, and welcome Chief Ojado.
Good evening, President Forney and Commissioners. I'm happy to be here tonight. The Superintendent asked me to provide a high-level and brief update to Commissioners around where we're at safety-wise for the first 2/3 of 2023. I'm joined by members of my command staff tonight. I'd just like to stand up and acknowledge them. Lieutenant Andrew Klein manages our patrol unit, and Lieutenant Calvin Noble manages our investigations unit. I will tell you that certainly in my role, nothing is accomplished without the help of others, and those two are helping me get through the challenges every day, and I really appreciate their support and for them being here tonight. So I'll start by outlining what our 2023 summer strategy was. This was developed at a retreat that we had early in the spring with all of our supervisors. Superintendent Bangora also had the opportunity to be there. We brainstormed around what worked well last year, revisited what we wanted our strategies to be for this year, and we initially identified 4 focus zone parks based on crime data and historic crime trends, and those were Loring Park, Elliott Park, East Phillips Park, and Powderhorn Park. Throughout the course of the year, we've made adjustments based on where we saw crime trends move. Oftentimes, crime is displaced when you provide a certain level of focus and attention in one area, crime may displace to another area. And as a result of that displacement, we have changed our focus zones a couple of times over the course of the summer. So at one point in May, we saw a lot of activity at Market Square, a relatively new park property along Lake Street near Hiawatha. It's adjacent to a light rail stop, and we provided a significant amount of focus there. We made that a focus zone park. We also saw an increase, particularly around destructive drug use activity at Curry Park. Our public bathrooms at Curry Park for a period of time were essentially overrun with people using them inappropriately. So we had added Curry to the list. And then just within the last month or so, we have seen a significant uptick at the Commons. So as it stands today, our focus zone parks are Loring, Elliott, the Commons, East Phillips, and Curry. In addition to identifying these focus zone parks based on violent crime trends especially, we continue our very strong collaboration with the Minneapolis City Attorney's Office. So Counsel Rice and his firm provide general counsel representation for the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board, but the Minneapolis City Attorney's Office by charter also has the obligation to provide all of our criminal prosecution. So we work very closely with them. We have a supervisor that we work with and meet with every other week to go through chronic offenders and to review cases, particularly in these focus zone parks. We have been posting and assigning overtime daily. These overtime assignments are also focusing in the focus zone parks, and particularly parks around the downtown loop. We have 3 mobile cameras. We're also designating mobile cameras where we think that they can have the most positive impact. As it stands today, those mobile cameras are located at Elliott, the Commons, and the main parking lot at Minnehaha Falls Regional Park. And throughout the summer, we've also had Park Patrol beat assignments. Our Park Patrol agents play a really important role in the way that we deliver safety across the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board. Our park agents have had assignments in regional parks where they stay there essentially the course of their day. So we've had beat assignments, for example, at Minnehaha Falls Regional Park, Theodore Wirth, and East Cedar Beach. I want to point out that, and I've talked to the board about this before, Loring Park historically has been one of our most challenging parks in the park system. It had, in the course of my career, been often #1 for volume of calls for service, as well as for violent crime. We made huge strides last year in reducing the amount of violent crime that took place in Loring, and I'm really proud to report that as of yesterday, knock on wood, we've had no serious violent crimes take place in Loring Park. Now, that's not to say we're not experiencing increases in other parks throughout the system. You can see that trend has actually reversed at Elliott Park. So Elliott Park, beginning around July of last year, has been one of our most challenging parks in the park system. In 2021, we had 0 violent crimes in Elliott Park. Last year, beginning in July, we had a stretch where we had 4 violent crimes take place there. And so far this year, there's been 11 serious violent crimes at Elliott. So the chart that I put before you maps all Part 1 crimes, so Part 1 violent crime along with Part 1 property crime. And this year, we have a 20% overall crime reduction. And I'll talk more specifically about where those reductions are in just a second. I will say that where we're at today is essentially even with where we were at in 2021, and we're still about 16% higher than where we were in 2019. Violent crime this year is essentially flat over the last 3 years. So you can see, based on where we're at in the week when this graph was printed, we're up slightly from 2022 and up just slightly from 2021, and still down from what was really in my career the historic high of 2020. We expect to be within that 10-year average that was established between 2012 and 2021 of 92 offenses a year based on projections of where we're at today. Again, serious violent crime is defined as homicide, rape, robbery, and aggravated assault. Now for the pretty good news. We've seen a significant decrease in property crime this year versus last year. Hopefully you remember me standing here last year and talking to you about the tremendous increase we had in car break-ins. We've been able to reverse that. So I'll start first with car break-ins because it is one of the most frequently encountered crimes across the park system. We've had a major reduction in car break-ins versus where we were at last year. So you can see on that bar graph at the bottom right, the red bar is last year and the blue bar is this year. We've gone from over 170 incidents year to date down to around 100 incidents year to date. That has come through the hard work of both our investigators who are able to follow up on some of these secondary crimes that take place when a car is broken into. So for example, when a car is broken into and a credit card is stolen, we've actually had some success in identifying the people using the credit card fraudulently and getting them charged. We've also bolstered our staffing at particularly the regional parks with our park agents and assigned extra staff there in times when we know that these car break-ins are happening. It is a labor-intensive approach, but it has been effective, especially at Minnehaha Falls. Last year we had about 75 car break-ins at Minnehaha Falls at this point in the year, and this year we're around 25. I will point out something that I think you probably have all heard in the news, and that is the tremendous increase that our city has seen in auto thefts. So that auto thefts are the representation of the top graph, the top right graph. This year we've had over 40 auto thefts in our park system. So these are cars being stolen from parking lots. And last year, for the entire year, I think we had just over 20. And we've never had anywhere close to 40 auto thefts in the course of a year in the park system. These auto thefts are primarily Hyundais and Kias that are vulnerable to having their ignitions bypassed pretty easily. It's something that young people can learn on social media, and it wreaked havoc really in our city between the months of April and June. We've seen this sort of level off over the course of the summer. I think we've gotten some support both from Kia and Hyundai in making some updates to their vehicles. We've gotten some better buy-in from the county attorney's office, and we've had some success intervening with these kids. So we have seen that level off, but I would say April through June was tremendously difficult. Often these stolen cars you would hear about being driven through parks in the midst of events or sporting events, and that became a challenge for us as well. The charts that I've just put up provide a visual breakdown of our 911 calls for service. So what I will say is that our 911 calls for service are at their highest point they've been in the last 5 years. You can see that year-to-date graph on the left side in the middle. So 911 calls mean that we're already behind, right? Something has already happened where the public has made the call because they need help. And over the last 5 years, we've seen more 911 calls year-to-date this year than we have in any other previous year. So there's more reactive work for us to do. The graph on the right side shows our total daily activity. So that's 911 calls plus any sort of proactive or self-initiated or discretionary activity that the officers engage in. You can see that our proactive and discretionary activity has gone down a little bit, and that's the result of both staffing challenges and more 911 calls. So moving away from the stats, I just want to point out some high-level challenges and then talk about some staff recognition. I would say that right now what we're experiencing in the park system, our most significant and ongoing challenge involves mental health and the use of drugs, particularly opioids and alcohol. This is the biggest challenge in places like Elliott Park and the Commons and those parks around the loop of downtown that our officers are working on every single day. Many of the people that we're encountering don't have stable housing. They're in these spaces because they're close to service providers, and they really don't have anywhere else to go. So these folks are landing in parks, they're landing in transit, the libraries, plazas, Nicollet Mall. The behavior that has come along with this has made providing programming and service delivery within these parks extremely challenging. In fact, for example, the Commons, we're providing daily escorts to our maintenance staff so they can just go there in the morning and clean the park. Police intervention is not the best long-term solution to these societal issues. These are things that need to have systemic investment and people stepping up to change the tide of where we're going. This isn't just a Minneapolis problem. I talked to colleagues from Chattanooga, Tennessee park system this morning, and they described the exact same thing. So although we are working really hard to intervene in acute crisis situations in these parks, we need a better long-term solution. Another significant challenge for the Park Police Department right now has been staffing. This has been over 2 years now that we've been trying to work through this. I guess the good news is we have 5 new staff who are currently at some point in their training, 3 officers who are in field training right now, and 2 cadets that just started the Cadet Academy on last Monday. But we continue to have vacant positions, and recruiting for these vacant positions is very difficult. We actually had 2 job postings over the course of this year where we had no qualified applicants. And this is not just, again, a problem in Minneapolis. This is a problem across the state of Minnesota, and it's actually a problem across the country. We are having a hard time recruiting people to become police officers, and we're in competition with every other municipal police department across the state right now. We are using overtime to help bridge the gap. Throughout the course of the summer, we're essentially posting almost 18 hours of overtime every day. So the equivalent of 2 full shifts in the middle of the day that officers could come and work in an overtime capacity. I just mentioned this, the statewide challenge is the fact that there are more open positions than there are qualified applicants right now. We are having some success, in particular with our cadet program. So the cadet program is a much longer training period. We recruit people who have no prior law enforcement experience or schooling. They can have an associate's degree in any field. We will background them, and then we will hire them and put them into a police officer certification program where we pay for them to go to school. And then once they successfully complete that certification, pass their licensing exam, we promote them to police officer. And we've had good success with that. Those are the 2 folks that just started their training a week ago. I always like to mention the board when our officers receive recognition for doing great work. Actually, in these 3 dot points, these were all officers who intervened with folks who were having a mental health crisis and in the midst of suicide. So Sergeant Swerzik and Officer Dennis have received a life-saving award. They actually pulled a suicidal person from the Lowry Avenue Bridge overpass to Interstate I-94. Officer Peyton Lauber was able to successfully de-escalate a person who was contemplating suicide at Lake Harriet and was armed with a gun. And Officer Carl Zabinski received a Distinguished Service Award for really providing supportive and empathetic intervention with another person who was in the midst of a suicide attempt. So that concludes my formal presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Questions, commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you so much, President Forney, and excuse me, thank you so much, Chief Ojado, for that update. It's a lot of information to digest, and I know that you guys are doing all that you can. I have larger questions I don't need to ask now because it's broader into how we can help prevent some of these issues, like just the market or the the Commons was something that I was like, oh man, how do we solve that conundrum? I was curious how, I know it's news, it's not in our jurisdiction, but the news of the 3rd Precinct's physical location, I know it just was kind of in the news this week about potentially moving it into a downtown location versus its current space. I'm curious how that might impact, I mean, I just wrote down the Commons and Market Square because it's close, I know they're not operating out of it, they haven't been, but it's close to Market Square now, and then it would potentially shift. I'm just curious your thoughts how that would impact maybe us in some of our downtown service.
So the 3rd Precinct covers South Minneapolis. They're going to move into the Century Plaza building, at least as a bridge solution until this can get figured out. You know, Century Plaza is a long ways from Boston Field or Minnehaha Falls or Lake Nokomis. And so I think that there will be some impact on not having the precinct in the geographic location that they're providing service. Now, you know, this is a complicated question that I don't have an easy, solution or answer to. But the idea of having a police precinct is that that police precinct provides service to the area that it's located.
That was along the lines of my thinking, and I know, like you said, it is a very complicated question and with a very complicated answer with impacts that we don't necessarily know yet, but the geography got my brain going. I just also wanted to say thank you for the hard work and the officers with those commendations. It's a high time, I think, for another ride along, so thank you so much, Chief.
Commissioner Menz.
Thank you, President Forney. Thanks for the report, Chief Ahato. The city's in tragic state at times. And I have a question. What determines a qualified applicant for the Park Police?
President Forney and Commissioner Menz, the Minnesota Post Board, through charge of the state legislature, has established what minimum qualifications are to become a police officer. And I can provide you those rules. They're very easily accessible on the Post Board website. So in addition to passing those standards, we require a driver's license. We require somebody to pass a medical evaluation. We require somebody to pass a psychological evaluation. And so we're looking at all of those things, the background, the psychological, the medical. They're subject to drug testing as well as part of their pre-employment conditions.
Does that, I guess my follow-up question to what you just said, does that drug include marijuana, or does it include just?
So there was a carve-out in the recent marijuana legislation, cannabis legislation, that had to do with emergency service providers, and Council Rice helped me out, maybe daycare providers or childcare providers, where they are still subject to testing for cannabis. Although I will tell you, in 10 years of having been this board's chief, I've not had somebody disqualified as a result of a drug test.
Okay. Also, are there systems in place, or are we exploring systems for more neighborhood watch type activities in these places, or collaboration with the local community of engaging citizens in this work as well?
President Forney and Commissioner Menz, I think the answer is absolutely yes. We want neighbors, community members to have a stake in their community safety. I've done a lot of the community walks that you see, in particular downtown. I was a big part of getting the Loring group convened and started, that community walking club, safety club. And to the extent that we can be a resource or a convener for that sort of work, we're happy to do that. People's interest and participation and sustainability all differ neighborhood to neighborhood and organization to organization, but we would love for neighborhoods to step up and provide that sort of, community watchful eye on our public spaces.
Thank you. That's great that we're doing those things and trying to facilitate and be a conduit for that, especially in the park. I guess, can you maybe divulge a little bit of what our maintenance staff might be going through to need a police escort to do their work?
President Forney and Commissioner Menz, when they arrive at the park early in the day, they are met with people sleeping around a tremendous amount of garbage who are extremely hostile towards staff in their attempts to clean the park, remove the garbage, wash the restroom facilities, and get the park ready for the day. And I don't mean to speak on behalf of other employees. If Assistant Superintendent Barrick would like to offer more, I'd invite him up to provide that. But they will not clean that park right now without a police escort.
When we encounter folks like that, what does the park, what do we do?
So President Forney, Commissioner Menz, it really depends on the exact situation. If we can provide a police escort and the police presence alone allows them to successfully accomplish their job, that's a win, and that's what we're doing right now. If our staff are threatened or assaulted, then there's a different sort of intervention that takes place, which may be arrest, it may be trespass. They're trespassed from the property. They could be cited. It just really depends on the situation.
Are there day resource centers for those folks to go to, or is it just that the park is their resource?
President Forney, Commissioner Menz, so I would say that the cleaning is taking place before the resources are open or available, and the degree to which people participate in those resources are all different. There are people waiting to go to their resource, and there are people that are just there because that's the place where all their friends are.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Vice President Kruta?
Thank you. Those are good questions, Billy. Jason, thank you. Quick question. For the folks that are cleaning the commons in the morning, I know that the DID has funding downtown as well as the downtown council, and this may be beyond your scope, but have we figured out from a more humanitarian approach for those folks to provide the resources that they've gathered either from city or county funding to actually be on site, potentially even at those times versus times that work for working adults like ourselves?
President Forney and Vice President Kruta, it's interesting that you raised that question because we actually just had a conversation with Hennepin County and also with the DID around social workers on assignment. So Hennepin County does have a program where they can provide either a social worker embedded into a police department, which they've done in some suburban agencies and are starting to do in Minneapolis. But there's also a Hennepin County social worker or two that are on assignment with the DID. Now, I don't think that their hours are going to line up for the 7 a.m. cleaning at the Commons. And I will also say that they have their hands full within the DID, but we are exploring that. And that was actually a conversation that I partnered with Leslie Vincent on, our Director of Community Connections and Violence Prevention. And I should have mentioned this in the presentation, but Leslie and I work very closely together. We talk almost every single day on working through issues so that it's not always just through the lens of a police officer or the Park Police Department, but that we have Leslie and her team involved in that as well.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, I think that is important. As you know, I'm familiar with the Market Square because it falls within my jurisdiction, and I've seen that kind of go up and down, and it wasn't just a kind of law enforcement approach. It was multifaceted and multi-pronged from a community perspective as well. And so I know that those things work, and I think that if we can find a way, and by we I mean collectively the institution of the Park Board and other governmental institutions, to meet the people where they are, some of these issues that we see may not be so contentious when you find yourselves kind of awakened, whether you're sober or not sober, at 7 in the morning because someone wants to clean around you. It could be startling to any human being, and let alone those folks who call kind of parks their homes. And so I just want us to maybe think about how we do that more intentionally and challenge those agencies, because we have people working at 7 a.m. And so I think the adaptability of the system, if nothing else from COVID, people have learned that everything that was once traditional time is no longer traditional. And if we are truly going to serve people, sometimes it requires for us to think outside of the box. And so I appreciate that. And then I think if I could I would appreciate a little bit more information on a cadet piece as we think about diversifying like racially and even like age demographics of potential park police officers that we can share out, because I think that while we are competing with other agencies, those agencies don't have the luxury of being the parks, and in a perfect world, like park police have a different rapport rate with community, because it's less about going out to apprehend someone, more about building relationships. Again, I'm speaking in a perfect world. I know the last several months or several years for any police department has been extremely challenged thanks to the actions of one of the former Minneapolis police departments that kind of exposed what we're all going through. But I think that it's really important if we can get it out and maybe put it in a way that people who are different will maybe want to be enticed to apply, or at least curious enough to pick up a phone and call you and say, hey, what exactly does this mean? Thank you.
So President Forney and Vice President Crudup, we will begin starting to recruit for cadet again, a January cadet hiring within the next week or two. Like I have in the past, I will send that out to commissioners. So please share it within your networks and your newsletters or folks that you know that may be interested. Again, it's a big investment for the organization to pay for that law enforcement certificate, but it has always been worth it in my view. The folks that we get do come from different backgrounds. They're not your cookie cutter police applicant. They have different life experience. Usually they're a little bit older. They come from very different backgrounds. And so to the extent that the board can help in my recruiting, I would very much appreciate that.
Commissioner Menz for a second time.
Thank you, President Forney. So I did want to just raise, and I've talked to Chief Ohio about this, that there is a big push in the school district for career and technical education around police officer training, and that might be a good place for us to look for long-term solutions via collaboration. And then the other thing is I know that our board, as we're looking into the budget, and I'm not sure, Chief Ohio, how Street Reach and the groups and how those folks, monitoring and helping with mental health and safety and engagement in the parks, how those folks work with the police department as a conduit or a de-escalation strategy, and maybe just calling on the board and, how do we invest in those resources as well? Because I know that we took away some resources from the Street Reach program last year, and I'm wondering if increases in that type of environment, because maybe the qualifications aren't as strict, that we could increase that and have more folks empathetically addressing these issues.
President Forney, Commissioner Menz, I think Street Reach has had some of the same challenges in hiring their folks, even with they've got the budget to hire and they're having a hard time filling positions. Similar to what we've experienced with police officers and park agents and lifeguards and park keepers. Getting people to come here and do this really hard work is not easy right now. And so, I work closely with Director Vinson and Superintendent Bangora, who leads our division, on all of these strategies. There is a role for Street Reach, but we also have to be respectful of that role and not ask them to be emergency responders or police officers in crisis situations. Street Reach started off as a group of people who were youth workers trained in de-escalating young people. And now we have expanded what they do tremendously, and we're trying to train them and fill positions with people who are qualified and interested in doing this work, but that job has evolved a lot.
Thank you. Commissioner Schaefer.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if there was any role for bonuses and how you're attacking this, or is it best, putting the money towards schooling?
President Forney and Commissioner Schaefer. So I work with Superintendent Bangora and Deputy Superintendent Ringgold on budget implications. I will be meeting with the executive team later this week to talk about the 2024 budget. But I will tell you right now, the city of Minneapolis does not have a settled contract with the Police Officers Federation, and we don't have a wage table for our officers for 2023 or 2024 right now. So in order to be a competitive employer, an employer of choice, there will be implications to the budget through whatever's negotiated in the contract. I'm not in a position to say, you know, the board should offer bonuses or what level bonus they should offer. I think that that's really something that needs to be vetted through our labor relations process and through the executive team, and for the superintendent to present to the board at the appropriate time.
Thank you. And then the other point I just want to say is that I just really appreciate the teamwork that you guys were a part of with Street Reach and the apartment owners and the liquor store owner. Chief Ohata visited the liquor store owner with me in Stevens Square and a season or so ago. And why there's a cluster in District 4, I'm not sure. But we're working through it between, you know, Franklin Steel stabilized, Loring better, Stevens Square better. But I'm calling on the community and the staff. You know, Elliott Park, we got it in the Commons, and we take safety seriously here as commissioners, but it has to be a team. No one person could do it by themselves, and but yet I think everybody's ready. So thank you for your efforts and everyone's efforts that have contributed to this work that you presented.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I just want to share my gratitude particularly to you, Calvin, to Andrew, and of course our heroes, Carl, Adam, and Morris and Peyton. Really, really appreciate your work. We all kind of, I think, understand why do we have a separate park police patrol, and it's because of these successes. So thank you so much. Okay, on then to our next update, and that's the Planning Division Monthly Report Format Update. Welcome, Assistant Superintendent.
President Forney, Commissioners.
Oh.
I'm going to give a very brief introduction,
Okay.
and then I'll have Madeline Hudak do the details of the presentation. I'll start with this. This is a document that I'm sure you all recognize, or maybe not. This is all the planning projects.
Oh, right.
It gets published once a month as a part of your petitions and communications, and it's the document that I look to when you call me and say, what's going on with whatever park? And some of you have found that out and been able to negotiate through here, but it is still difficult and maybe not always as up to date as we would want it to be. So following on the heels of some of the work that asset management has done in providing better public-facing tools related to things as diverse as pools and snow plowing, and the work that planning has done to put information forward on the parkland dedication and the true CIP, we're putting this document into a form that's online and much more updatable and up-to-date than what we've been able to do in the past. So Madeline will give you kind of an overview of how this works. It may not answer every question that you have, so I expect you'll still be calling from time to time, but I'll bet it's going to be a far better tool for you to use and for the public to use than what we've had in the paper version before. So Madeline, please.
Welcome, Madeline.
Hello. Okay, so I'm going to give you a quick tour of the dashboard, which will be available on the public website, hopefully either by the end of this week or sometime next week. And it'll be on the current projects page, so where you may go already to kind of find the links to all the different current projects going on. So this is the landing page for the dashboard. It gives you a sense of the two kind of pages that have the primary information in them. So in progress projects, and then things that are on hold or pending assignment. It gives you a little bit of information about how to interact with the dashboard because it does have some interactive elements to it. So it's not just kind of that static report that you've gotten in the past. And then there's also some definitions here for the different project phases and different types of projects that you'll see on that in progress page. So move to that. So this in progress page, similar to the planning report, has kind of a table that shows you who the point of contact is, the project name, a brief description, and most of these descriptions will link you back to our public website where you'll find the wealth of information on a current project. And then what phase the project is in, if it's in more of a construction type phase, or if it's a project type like a long-term planning process or kind of policy, we have a category for that. And then you'll have a percentage for complete on that particular either phase or project type. So for example, this 26th Avenue North Overlook project is currently in design development and it's about 50% complete. So just gives you kind of a high-level view of where things are at. And then this chart here gives you the quantity of the different projects in these different phases or project types. So most of these are different phases, which is why they're all kind of different colors of green. And then the orange is that park planning and policy development. And the interactive piece of this is if you wanted to just kind of filter the map and the table for just the construction projects, you can click on that piece, or design development, kind of whatever you're interested in. You can also click on the map here, which right now is showing you all the locations where there's at least one project, although some areas might have more than one. And you can click on a particular point on the map to filter the table and get your quantity of projects changed here too. And then there's also some filters at the bottom here for Commissioner District, and you'll see for some of these, some of you that have sort of shared areas, you'll see you've got a couple of different numbers or kind of check boxes, and you can check multiple boxes here, so you can find the projects for particular districts, so this would be for District 1, for example. Or if you have a particular location in mind, you can search for that and filter for that. Or here is again that filter for a particular phase. So if we want to do design development, it will filter the entire dashboard for you. So that is in progress projects. And then for on hold and pending, it kind of looks similar to the previous page, but a few more options here. So the projects on hold, it gives you kind of similar information to the in progress projects, but it also gives you a status note. So you have an idea of why that project is on hold. And then all of these projects here are the ones that are pending assignment. So we have our capital improvement CIP dashboard, which if you've gotten a chance to look at that, there's a kind of pending category. So any dollars that are in the CIP going back to 2017 that have sort of a pending status show up on this table here, which you can, for Above the Falls, for example, it's got a couple of different line items. So these plus buttons give you the opportunity to kind of dig a little bit deeper if you want to see not just Above the Falls has money for a couple of years, but what that money is allocated to according to the CIP. And similarly to the previous page, there's a map here, which is for those pending the locations that have projects pending assignment. And there's also, again, a filter for your commissioner districts, so you can look at that. And then you have your total count of on hold and pending assignment projects. So that's the dashboard in a nutshell. Again, it will be available for you all on the public website, hopefully by the end of this week or sometime next week. And you can kind of dive in as you wish. And what will be nice, kind of just echoing what Assistant Superintendent Schroeder said, with this report, you'll be able to kind of at your fingertips see the latest updates, because the frequency for updates or the opportunity is a lot more with a tool like this versus those monthly reports that you're getting. And it'll primarily have kind of planning-led projects, but we've also talked with asset management, and the rehabilitation projects will be on here as well, kind of in sort of a categorical way. So you can get kind of a sense of, hopefully, projects that are happening around the system in a few different ways. Yeah.
Thank you, Madeline. Questions, people? Commissioner Albert?
Just a real quick question. Can you send us all an email when it goes live to the public?
Yes.
Yeah, great.
Commissioner Thompson?
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you. As I'm sure many people in this room know, it's got to be more than just me, but we'll get constituents asking about things, and then we end up passing it along, being like, yeah, can you please give me an update on this? And this is just a really great, it's just great. So thank you for doing all of that. I guess that's really all I wanted to say. And yeah, I would love to like tinker around like before the public gets a hold of it, so then I know. Thank you.
Commissioner Benny?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, and I think this is great because I actually think that the Park Board's website is very informative. And you know, hopefully this isn't really too much harder to keep up because you're basically probably pulling in the spreadsheet data as it is, so if you keep that up, you're keeping this up. But again, you know, I think these tools are great so long as they're reliable, in terms of the data is reliable. But I would say another comment, I had signed up for a lot of the Gov Delivery topics. I don't know how I did that. But recently emails came out saying how many topics were retired. I don't know if other people got that. I thought that was just great. And also telling the public that topics were retired was, I think, really good. So anyway, I'm just saying, I think this can really work and be a really useful tool. So thank you.
Commissioner Menz?
Seriously, this is really cool. I'm going to play on this a lot. So it's really nice to see and who the connection is, because, you know, we all know a lot of the staff, but sometimes we don't make that connections as to who's working on what project, and this is going to be a very helpful tool for me as a commissioner, especially in my district. So thank you very much. Really, really awesome.
President Forney, I'll just mention that you won't be getting this anymore. I just want to make sure that you get that. This is a much better tool. And I think that what is really important, and Madeline mentioned this, but I will stress it again, instead of having it being updated once a month, if a project manager goes in and updates their particular project, it updates like immediately. So this is a much more dynamic tool for tracking projects, and it'll be valuable for you as long as we can keep the information up to date. And we'll be working with our project managers to make certain this information is updated on a very regular basis.
Commissioner Schaefer?
I just had one quick question. What level of detail will you be putting onto the website? You know I'm a detail person.
President Forney, Commissioner Schaefer, even with that question, I'm guessing it's not going to be detailed enough.
Well,
But so, well, I expect there will still be questions that come back.
Yeah.
But sometimes you won't be able to reach me directly, but at least the project manager for the park will be there, and you'll be able to reach out to them and hopefully get an answer more quickly and directly.
Okay, great, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, thank you. My nephew is a geek, and he's in the data business, and it's just remarkable how we've made that our foundation, and I so appreciate your work, Madeline. It's really awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So with that, we will then move on to reports of officers. Superintendent Bangora is someplace. Hopefully he will return, and we will get him queued up here, and after that, we'll have petitions and communications, and hopefully move on to committees. So we'll wait a few more minutes for him, and
Let me peek in the hall. One second.
I'll go see if I can.
has he been kidnapped, or hopefully nothing like that, so. I was going to say, if nobody minds, we will start them with at least a couple petitions and communications. I'll start with Commissioner Menz, if you don't mind.
I would love that. So I got to go to the groundbreaking of Graco Park, which was quite exciting. So I think that park, I run through there, I ride my bike through there, I cross there when I leave this meeting. So it's a really great space, and I'm really excited to see how it pans out. And the combination of nature programming along with the river, along with a Spark studio, I think that the space has a really great opportunity to be a place where the north side and the northeast parts of town come together, and I think that's a really great place. I also would just like to reiterate all of the work that the staff does. I mean, I talk to staff all the time. I'm in the parks. There's 175 kids playing baseball in Northeast Park right now, and it's due to the efforts of a lot of community members and a lot of park directors and a lot of collaboration. And I just think that when we're at our best, we are working together and we are thinking about the children and how we can get families and building community through our parks, through our programming, is extremely important in this very difficult time. Last comment is school is back in session. So young people are a joy, but they are also in crisis. And I really want to make sure that we are thinking about how we address young people in this time and realize that their lives are difficult. And as a parent, sometimes I want to be like, cry me a river to my kid or other kids. But at the same time, there is so many things that they have to deal with that our park programming and our park system can really impact. That they have to deal with social media or the distraction of a phone or the lack of connection to nature or all of these things that we have an impact on. And just our staff is working on that. Our programmers are working on that. People like Mr. Nolan, who came earlier, are working on that. The more people that we can get involved in working with kids and be the conduit for that happening in our parks, Mr. Tate is working on that. How do we do that? How do we get more kids to the park structured? Because kids need structure now. They won't just go to the park on their own until we sort of figure out how to get them back. So I encourage us, as we're thinking about the budget and thinking about how we can spend money to impact young people, sometimes it's people, sometimes it's systems. Let's really consider how we're going to get them to the park and keep them there as much as possible.
Thank you. Superintendent Bangara, please, your reports of officers. We are eager to hear.
All right. Thank you, President Forney and Commissioners. Of course, I stepped out wanting to use the restroom, so it's rare, but thank you for your patience on that one. Got some really great things to talk about today again, and again in the effort to look at our strategic directions. We'll kind of walk through all the 5 of them and give an update on all the wonderful work that we're doing within our park system. And I always go back through this reminder of the strategic directions. So strategic direction A, act boldly for our climate future. We're going to focus on golf courses, which is really interesting. This might take a little bit of work here, so bear with me here. Well, as you know, in the world of turf management, especially, of course, in our golf courses, the movement is to become more sustainable, obviously. Reducing our chemical needs while still providing quality conditions of our golf course. Ampere golf courses have a great place to try some of those methods and to see if certain claims can actually happen in the field of golf. We looked at university trials and greenhouse studies. Do not incorporate all the major variables that come with managing golf courses. The park board completed a 3-year study this past year using only Organic Materials Review Institute. And if you hear the acronym, it's OMRI products at Fort Snelling Golf Course. The golf course suffered as we were severely limited on what we could procure and by the overall cost of those products. Overall, we do not recommend any turf systems going the OMRI only, but the study has motivated the park board for the possibility of using other organic products and altering maintenance practices to get the results we're looking for as a park system. So by focusing on creating a better growing environment, we can become less dependent, of course, on pesticides in maintaining our golf courses. And there are several things that I can share with you that are kind of like key points. One of them is selective pruning of trees to allow for more airflow and sunlight. Another one is removing dew early so the leaf wetness is shorter, thus breaking the disease triangle. Another one is increased soil and tissue testing, finding what our specific plants need. GPS sprayers as they are about 15% less overspray, as product is where we need it, using surfactants and plant growth regulators to increase plant health, focusing on plant health versus playability, using models to predict disease occurrence and thresholds for when to spray, and then lastly, building the soil to be able to limit the number of pathogens that are in the soil. We also know that golf courses have challenges to product reduction. All of those courses are dated in regard to turf species that grow on them. Turf grass breeding and genetics have become light years since most of those courses were last seeded, and that's important to know. One example at Hiawatha Golf Course the past years, we have reseeded a few different areas of the course to see the effect of these new variants or varieties. We have picked a tee box, a portion of the fairway, and the driving range to test. Also, we are in the process of regressing a few greens that we had issues with this summer. The tee box and the fairway were reseeded into what they call declaration creeping, bent grass. This entire process took over 40 days to grow, and since I have not seen any of the disease besides snow mold on those two areas. The driving range tee was seeded into perennial ryegrass last fall, and it came out better than expected, and once again, did not have any disease to speak of. So I hope that all makes sense. It's a lot of information, but I think it was so important to share the work we're doing as an organization, in particular to looking at our climate future and our golf courses. And so, again, we'll share these and so you can read through it more thoroughly because it's a lot of information. That's why I have to stick to script or I'll go completely off on this one. It's technical. So strategic direction B, which is cultivate each community's place to honor cultural traditions in Minneapolis parks. And this is really exciting and interesting to hear what we're doing around this one and what we're involved in. So efforts are to convey land surrounding the upper St. Anthony Falls Lock and Dam continue. So we continue to work on that. Negotiations involving Friends of the Falls and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the City of Minneapolis and the Park Board has been more complicated than we originally, of course, anticipated. Early design ideas generated by the Friends of the Falls show an evolution of land surrounding the lock and dam from function supporting its former navigation purposes to an environment more fully reflective of the river and allowing its stories to be more fully embraced, which is very important. More importantly, the process continues to engage tribal communities, seeking their insights on the design of spaces surrounding the lock and dam, reflecting the Dakota, inspired ways of connecting to the river and its landscape. The tribal leaders from several communities gathered at Mayor Fry's office to review expectations related to the conveyance on Tuesday, August 29th. The MPRB was represented by President Forney, myself, and of course, Assistant Superintendent Schroeder. Tribal leaders expressed strong support for a change in the site, but collaborative programming focused on the traditions seemed to be the greater goal than direct ownership of the land. So I could repeat that, but I think it's important to know that we really heard a really strong focus on really more traditions and more collaborative programming. That's what we really got out of that. So discussions with the Corps of Engineers will likely continue in the next several months as we continue to work through this process and working with our partners. And again, it was a really informative and really important meeting and was really appreciated by all those who attended that were there. And I think President Forney can speak of it later too, if she'd like, so of course. Strategic Direction C, implement quality youth and intergenerational programs. So of course, the Minneapolis Monarch Festival. So this Saturday, September 9th, is the 15th annual Minneapolis Monarch Festival at Lake Nokomis, and the participants will tag and release monarch butterflies and will celebrate monarchs through art, education, dance, and music. MPRB Environmental Management is the lead for this amazing bilingual, bicultural event. We estimate that somewhere between 8,000 to 10,000 people will participate in this event. And again, a really exciting opportunity. I think I drive by like regularly when I take my drive home. Then I looked over, I saw this really beautiful artwork on the pickleball court. So pretty cool, kind of anticipating what's happening there. The next strategic direction, D, care for park assets to meet evolving needs and practices. Rope railing restoration on Nicollet Island. The maintenance department collaborated with the Teamworks to replace several broken posts as well as the rope railings on Nicollet Island. The stairway is used daily by both Nicollet Island residents and the general public. The stairs bring you down to the bridge and connects Nicollet Island to Boom Island. Now that the stairway has been repaired, dog walkers, runners, bird watchers, and others will be able to continue enjoying the wonderful scenery that these two islands provide in our park system. This was a fantastic project for the Teamworks staff to develop important life skills. And I mentioned previously when I was at Theodore Wirth when they were putting in this wonderful fence rail, and I watched them use those power auger and the power team or the power crew that was doing this work, and it's just another example of some of the wonderful things that our Teamworks are doing to our park system, and it is greatly appreciated. And I can't say enough for our environmental stewardship team, our asset management team, the work that they do on our Teamworks is just amazing. If you ever have a chance to, maybe next year, get out there and see some of the work that Teamworks do, I really encourage you to do it. It's really a great experience. The next one is strategic direction E, steward our natural resources. And we're going to talk about the linden borer. Thanks to the keen eye of one of our forestry tree inspectors, the native linden borer has been discovered at approximately 70 boulevard trees. Unfortunately, the infected trees will need to be removed to prevent the pest from spreading. According to a visiting entomologist from the DNR, the dry summers we have been experiencing has stressed these trees, making them more vulnerable to the attack. Residents on streets where trees need to be removed will be informed that removals will occur this winter. It's really important to note that the linden borer is not an invasive pest and does not fit in the criteria for citywide action. As such, we will not be surveying or condemning linden trees on private property. With that, President Forney and Commissioners, that is a quick update on some of our wonderful things we do in our park system. If any questions, we can take those now. So thank you for your time.
Any questions to the superintendent of that amazing work? Anybody? Anybody have any questions? Yes, Vice President Crudup.
I just have one question about as the linden borer bug is up. The young woman who got up and did her presentation that stated information that was contradictory to what you're saying. Can we get some detail from our side of it to go with that, to figure out, to ensure that we are acting appropriately and equitable across the board?
Yes, President Forney and Vice President Crudup, absolutely. I know I was texting back and forth here too to make sure that we get information specific to that so we can always inform the board of the things that we are doing and what really is the facts and the work that we are engaged in. So we can definitely get that to the board as soon as, in fact, we'll start working on that immediately to get it to you.
Awesome, thank you. Commissioner Menz.
Yeah, to follow up on that, actually, as the representative for the Minneapolis Tree Advisory Commission, is there any action or work that you're going to suggest to Director Sievert to push towards that group?
President Forney and Commissioner Menz, I would defer to our expert Assistant Superintendent Barrett to maybe give a little more context. So I'll speak online, so if I can have Assistant Superintendent Barrett come up here and give some.
It's really helpful to know that it's not an invasive species. Thank you for outlining that criteria.
Absolutely.
Good evening, President Forney, Commissioner Menz. I believe he has, Director Sievert has already shared this with the Tree Advisory Committee. I think their meeting is the third Thursday, right? So I'm sure they'll discuss it there. It is a native pest similar to two-lane chestnut borer, which affects stressed oaks, or bronze birch borer that affects stressed birch trees. So it's the native linden borer with the stress. And as we stated, we're not going to. It's not an invasive pest that requires sanitation on private property, so there wouldn't be a private property impact. Our inspectors are trained to look for it now. They're tagging it. That's how we've already identified the 70 trees. And I would say we came into this knowledge only like a week or so ago. It hasn't been a terribly long time. We just noticed a lot of lindens and stressed.
So it's all kind of new. Thank you.
Commissioner Olson.
Sorry, just real quick, Jeremy.
So it was that because of the drought, should we be sending out notifications to our constituents and residents that they should be watering linden trees in particular to kind of help with that? Is that a good preventative measure? Are there other sort of products or things like that that folks can look to?
President Forney, Commissioner Olson, watering, we have our active campaign, Water Trees Weekly. Mature trees still require water. Something that with this, if it's too far infested, it's kind of a moot point. But you can keep it, watering a tree can help prevent it from getting to that point. Watering linden specific, yes, similar to like oaks and birch and other trees, all trees face a pest of some sort. So Watering Trees Weekly is probably our best campaign. We look to the U of M extension and the DNR for a lot of the kind of official outreach and guidance. And then as far as treatment goes, I don't know about, I would guess that a systemic insecticide would be effective with that, but there are trade-offs with that in terms of impacts to pollinators, et cetera. So.
Any other questions? Thank you. Okay, moving on then to petitions and communications. Commissioner Schaefer.
Pass.
Oh, Commissioner Alper.
Yeah, I have just a few things to share. First of all, I am so thrilled to see that Phillips Aquatic Center is going back to 7 days a week being open as of September 5th, now that we've wrapped up our summer season. So I know we had a lot of talk at our joint school board, park board meeting about swimming and why pools closing. So that's super to see, and that it will be open on Sunday. So I just want to say thank you to all the staff making that happen. This morning, I was at a really cool event, and I got to speak on behalf of the park board at Longfellow Park. It was a collaboration between the Toro Company and the Twins Community Fund to repair ball fields. So, woohoo! I think all 4 of them were covered. They were working on 3 when I left, but it was a volunteer day, about 50 volunteers, so that was awesome. $20,000 donation, and I'm so thrilled that they chose Longfellow Park, so I hope to see that continue within our park system. A couple more things. I am hoping to be at Corcoran Park this Friday with the food distribution, with the Sane Foundation, over 300 families served, around 850 people, and I just think it's such an amazing event, and I would welcome anybody who wants to come witness that on the board to go check it out. It starts, I believe, at 2 p.m. and continues until the food literally runs out. And then September 12th, I want to let you know that there is an emergency housing meeting. That's the name of the meeting that Councilmember Chavez is pulling together, and that will occur at Phillips Community Center from 6 to 8 p.m. That's it.
Thank you. Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you, President Forney. I'll just say, piggybacking on some of the things that have already been said, school is back in session, and you will see like the bags under my eyes will start to form as the year goes on. But I'm reminded, as Commissioner Menz said, of just the truly intimate and interwoven relationship that we have with schools. And I know whether it happens at the board level or not, it happens at the staff level, and it happens with the kids. I had a colleague, I just spoke with him today. He works for Teamworks. I told him that he was mentioned at one of the meetings, and he just glowed. And he was talking to some other colleagues when I stopped him, and I could hear as I walked away, because it was lunch, they were like, oh man, he's like, well, that's always nice to hear, that people are talking about you in a positive way. And I was like, yeah, it reflects back constantly. And then I met my new students, and sure enough, one woman was like, oh, I was a lifeguard this last summer at Nokomis, and it's just those little things that, we live in such a robust and beautiful city, and I know we have challenges. We hear constantly about our challenges. But when you are working with young people, when you do connect with them, and I'm looking at Commissioner Menz a lot because I know he gets it too, and I know everybody up here does, but it's just, you see a really beautiful side and a lot of the hope that we carry of, at least for me, why we do this work. So I want to thank you all and just thank all of our staff, and hope we continue that great relationship. So thanks.
Commissioner Benney.
Thank you, President Forney. I just want to make one comment about the petitions and communications. I just really noted a really great job by Carrie Christensen developing the community engagement plan for the Midtown Greenway. 'Cause I think it was threading the needle a little bit there on some of the direction coming from the board, but I don't think she's here. But if you could pass on my appreciation, it's very nice. That's it for me.
Commissioner Olson.
Pass.
Vice President Kruto.
Thanks. Nothing really for me, but I think has been reiterated a bunch of times. Young people are back in school. It does not absolve us from the issues that young people deal with in their community day in and day out. And so the hope is that we continue to find a way to service them the way that they allow us and the way that they need us, and that we solicit their voice constantly, and that we're able to pivot and adapt and adjust programming needs based on the feedback that we're getting from young people. And in spaces where we're not seeing young people come into our parks, that we figure out a strategy to draw them in, to keep them safe, to keep them engaged, and figure out what it takes to do that. So to the park staff that's been holding things down this summer and keeping hundreds and thousands of young people safe, we appreciate you. I appreciate you. Super grateful and looking forward to a maybe mild winter here. That's my hope. But also, I'm not sure where we are because I've missed a couple of meetings, but we also need to circle back about the Emerald Ash Borer and the relief to homeowners. I've seen a bevy of emails come through and text messages to my phone here, and so I think that was something that we had talked about circling back with, and I'm just bringing it forth because potentially I missed it in a couple of meetings that I missed, so thanks.
Thank you. Following the guide of the superintendent, I'll continue to equate my P's and C's to our strategies. And so the strategy number one of find our climate future. Kitty corner from here, I refer to it as the wooded area. Used to be a lumber yard, and so that's why I call it the wooded area. And so I was very proud of the fact that we broke ground for that next facility, which will be a first. It's going to be a net zero building. The fact that it's going to have heated sidewalks and once again, addressing stormwater to me is very exciting. I will advocate, as I brought up when we were first approving this project and everything, that this is a historic area. That is where the Red River ox cart went through. And so there is a tremendous amount of history, and I hope that we will articulate that in any way that we possibly can. As far as the the cultural part, as the superintendent Bangora indicated, I did attend what was called the Friends of the Falls meeting at the mayor's office. Friends of the Falls will be changing their name again. That area is referred to, and I hope I get it right, is Owamni Yomni. Anyway, I hope that name will be embraced. It was a very exciting conversation. Everybody was so honest is the wrong word, but just candid, that's the word I'm looking for. And as far as what ownership looks like, as far as what programming looks like. And so I really look forward to see how that is going to evolve. And what became very clear to me is the fact that the white man's construct of ownership is only ours. And it can be viewed in a lot of different ways, and I hope that we embrace that going forward and honor the tradition that was before us. Then as far as our intergenerational and youth programming and everything, I have to acknowledge I participated in the Open Swim this year, and just what a unique program that is, and it is so fun to see how many people are out there, and I am so grateful for our lifeguards this year. Particularly with the heat wave that we've had, it really has been an essential service for all of us. And then last, as far as our Care for Parks assets, working through this concurrent ordinance has been quite a lift, and it was very exciting to see everybody coming together as far as getting the language right, because the concurrent ordinance is our way to go, and I'm looking forward to what the city comes back with. And so on that, I would also like to say happy birthday tomorrow to Commissioner Abeni, and next week to Commissioner Elper. So upon that, then I will declare the meeting adjourned here at 7:04 and pass it on to planning.
And with that, I would like to convene the Planning Committee. Secretary, can you please take the roll?
Commissioner Thompson.
Here.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Here.
Commissioner Olson.
Here.
Co-Chair Benny.
Present.
Co-Chair Elper.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Great. Can I get a motion to approve all 3 Planning Committee
Agenda?
minutes? Oh, the agenda. Yeah, I have to do the agenda. It's day 2.
I would like to move the agenda.
Yeah. Thank you. Can all those in favor of the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that,
I'll move all 3 minutes.
yes, please go for it.
23-104, 2023-94, and 2023-87.
Great. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that passes. So then we're on to our next one. Can I get a motion
I'd
for
like
that
to
too?
move Resolution 2023-162, Resolution granting temporary construction easements to the state of Minnesota for bridge rehabilitation purposes in central Mississippi Riverfront Regional Park.
Great. So with that, in keeping with our plan for the Planning Committee, we are not having a presentation, but if there are any questions, comments, we have Director Svensson here to answer any questions that we have, or staff, generally speaking. So let's see. Commissioner Thompson, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I do just have a question about the duration of this project. When I was reading through it, it just said temporary easements, and I'm going to be real honest, sometimes when other jurisdictions, particularly the county and or the Met Council, I get a little nervous of what that means. So I know we weren't going to have a full presentation, but I'm not trying to beg of one, I just am curious the timeline. And I know that there are some issues in details for what that might mean for our residents, especially who use that as a thoroughfare.
Great. And if I may just say, could you also clarify the jurisdiction we're dealing with?
Okay, Chair Alper and Commissioner Thompson, you were asking about the periods of time for...
Yes.
Okay, so I have this nifty little chart. I'm hoping this will be helpful. So there are 2 parcels, one on either side of the river, and parcel 4 is, I always get a little confused myself, so I had actually named them. Mill Ruins Park is on the southeast side of the river, kind of not quite south, not quite east. And the time in which they'll be using that portion would be April of 2025 till November of 2025. And then for parcel 306, which is on the Father Hennepin side of the river, they'll be using that in April of 2024 until November of 2024.
And so basically that's 2 full summers on either side of the bridge, for summers and falls. How would that impact the park, especially Father Hennepin we've just been working on? And I know that that's been under construction. How does that impact that space?
Okay, so I have the exhibits that should help you.
Thank you so much.
That. So this is of course the Mill Ruins side, which is probably not the best way to look at it, but.
Could you speak a little more into the microphone, please?
Apologies.
Thank you.
So this is the Exhibit 304, which is the Mill Ruins side. You can see most of this, the yellow portion is mostly access. The work area is just this little mint green area. So they'll be actually driving back and forth for the most part in the yellow area and the green areas. Well, they'll be doing, I suppose, a lot of the work for the bridge rehab. And then, unfortunately, I said this is for 306. parcel 306, which is on the Father Hennepin side. Not sure why my PDF is doing this, but I'm not sure why it's doing this, but there we go. Most of it is on the embankment portion. And so there's a little portion of the circle there on that side that has the access.
Thank you for this. And may I ask, does it shut down the bridge or reroute things? Or is it just that literally there will be construction equipment as they work underneath it?
Oh, the bridge will be basically
Inoperable?
commission, yes.
Yeah, for 2 years. Okay.
And I'll have a
Yeah,
director.
I guess that was the thing that I read between the lines that I was a little bit like, oh, okay, this will be quite the story. So I would love to, understand it better. Thank you.
Chair Alport, Commissioner Thompson. So this is a major bridge reconstruction for MnDOT. They'll be closing this bridge in 2 halves, basically at the suspension bridge portion of Stone Arch. So again, the first half will be on the, what I'll call the east side. They'll close it, do that work this first construction season, and then they will start construction as soon as they can the following spring and close the west half of the bridge. They have detours in place for bike and pedestrians, but again, this is not a easy construction project, correct? This is it's a masonry bridge, so it's heavy masonry work, lifts, et cetera, over the sides of the bridge, working from the riverside up, retuck pointing all of the masonry joints, redoing stone. So it's not something that they can keep the bridge open while construction is happening. Over the last 3 years, we've been working with them and talking through with MnDOT and their design engineering staff about should we close half of the bridge longitudinally or just half at a time. And they came back and suggested from a constructability standpoint that they wanted to do half at a time. Again, for us to have some access for our park users to the center of the river to see the falls, so that we're allowing access for pedestrians and bicyclists, but it won't be through traffic.
Sorry, I have so many questions that just came into my brain. This, you might not be able to answer this. Is this in any way collaborative or in connection with the, the Friends of the Falls are the ones administering it, but with that whole, the falls right there, the St. Anthony Falls, and all the engineering related to that, is that it has any connection, or is this sort of like Highway 81 that went under construction and now we're going to rebuild it because of the Blue Line, where it's 2 different jurisdictions who didn't really chat with each other before starting construction? You might not be able to, because I'm thinking it's like the federal government and the Army Corps of Engineers and then Met Council. MnDOT, excuse me, sorry, now I'm wrong, wrong even still.
Chair Alpert, Commissioner Thompson, this may not answer your question exactly, but the bridge is owned by MnDOT.
Yeah.
So the falls and the lock and dam, that's totally separate. Their work that MnDOT would be doing on this bridge would have no impact on the lock and dam, or the lock and dam construction should not have any impact on the bridge. 2 different types of construction. Yes, they're 2 different entities, but that work would not be done simultaneously if there was any additional work to be done on the lock and dam associated with any land transfer.
Got it. One last question, and I know it has nothing to do with us, but I'm curious, is the bridge not structurally sound? What is I see it's a huge project. Is it just for some nice, give it a nice scrub and put in some new limestone, or is it just like something's wrong?
Chair Alpert, Commissioner Thompson, there was significant investigation done underwater, above water on this bridge. And the consulting engineers that they hired to do this initial examination found that there were some structural deficiencies. So we need to So we would very much like MnDOT to complete this work to maintain the integrity of the Stone Arch Bridge. Again, this fall, it turns 140 years old, which
Yeah.
is similar to the
It's
Minneapolis
historic.
Park System. So we would very much like this bridge to continue to function. And MnDOT has a big commitment to this bridge. This is not a simple, or excuse me, precast or steel girder bridges are not simple. I didn't mean to say that, but this is a complex bridge system. Masonry with soil-filled arches, it's not a simple bridge, and it needs to be maintained properly.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you answering questions that are not necessarily our jurisdiction at all, so I appreciate that.
So I am going to go to Council Rice and then to you, Commissioner Schaefer.
Thank you, Chair Alper. If I just make a quick comment, and the president's out of the room, so she'll hear my voice and tell me to cut it short. But just so this board understands, this project was initiated by this board in 2018 as part of the legislative agenda. The Park Board went to the legislature and said, this bridge needs to get fixed. It's 140 years old. It isn't London Bridge yet, but we know the song London Bridge is falling down, and this bridge isn't as old as London Bridge, but it's probably the oldest bridge in the state of Minnesota. It might be the oldest bridge that still spans the Mississippi in its original form. We thought in 2018, when the prior board put this on the legislative agenda, that it might be $10 million. We thought we had some success by getting $1 million to at least do the study. It's now a $22 million project, and they really haven't gotten into it. It's got 3 million people who go over it every year, and that's really thanks to this board and your predecessor is Representative John Sarna, who got the state to transfer jurisdiction from Hennepin County to MnDOT. Then MnDOT worked out a lease with us. The Park Board has rights to the surface of the bridge. We're really fortunate with MnDOT to be the partner that keeps the bridge up. All we have to do is maintain the surface. I mean, just imagine if this bridge were owned by the Park Board and we had to come up with $22 million to replace it. I mean, I wouldn't know where we would begin to get the resources. If we had $22 million to fix the Parkway system, imagine what we could do. So, I mean, just by way of background, really, and I think a lot of credit to get this project going really goes with the prior board. Senator Dietzick, when she was in the minority, was able to get $1 million, and then another really unsung hero on this is Mr. Zelli, who took an interest in this bridge years ago with his family having their business over there. He was the commissioner of Minnesota MnDOT. At a point now he's the chair of the Met Council, but he found money in MnDOT's resources to work on this bridge, and it's very, very unique. Yeah, I think Commissioner Alper, you point out it is on the state bicycle transportation network, but this is kind of a bridge that, but for a legislative enactment that a Minneapolis legislator did, almost 30 years ago, MnDOT wouldn't have wanted to own this thing anymore. They'd want to own anything else. So, and the president hasn't returned, so I'll quit.
Thanks for that history. Okay, Commissioner Schaefer.
Yeah, it's great to hear that history, and it gives perspective. I appreciate that. And I'm glad that, and they own it, right? I mean, the state owns the bridge, so it is their responsibility to maintain it. Question, where is the detour for the bike ped going?
Chair Alper, Commissioner Schaefer, it would go over 3rd and Hennepin. So 3rd Avenue is expected to be done with construction this fall. That's one of the reasons why they've held off on awarding a contract, wanting to wait for 3rd Avenue to be complete. But it'll between 3rd Avenue and Hennepin Avenue Bridge will be the detour route.
Okay, and then are we anticipating we're going to have to close our restrooms in Father Hennepin, or any impacts to programming when I look at this map?
Chair Alper, Commissioner Schaefer, no, the intention is not to close. That's one of the reasons why we worked with them to limit that access, right? So they're they're using part of a city right-of-way for staging, but that cul-de-sac, it's kind of something maybe you all didn't know, but that cul-de-sac, part of that cul-de-sac is actually on park board property. So using just a little portion of the yellow, and the green portion is just, they have some vegetation removal, very little, they're working with our forestry group to do. So it's really that yellow portion that will be the staging area. Otherwise, the restroom building, the programming, et cetera, that will all stay functioning.
Okay, so can you, I'm sorry, I may have missed this, but the Mint area I thought was where they were working. No?
Chair Alper, Commissioner Schaefer, they've identified that as a construction area. All they're doing there is just removing some vegetation. We've done some vegetation removal, our forestry crews, so it's very little work. They just have it within their area to remove any vegetation that may hamper that bridge.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Menz.
Can you clarify the parking, like, will the parking on that area be gone? Those few spots? I'm sorry if I missed that.
Chair Alper, Commissioner
Between
Menz.
Main Street and the cul-de-sac.
Yep, Sixth Avenue will be closed for this construction, this first construction season. The University of Minnesota heating plant, they'll have access, but basically it'll be closed. It'll be closed for no parking, et cetera, there.
Okay, well, I would just like to make a few comments here. I mean, this bridge is just, it is the symbol of our city, major piece of our transportation network. So I am so grateful to MnDOT for taking on this rehabilitation. So I just want to state emphatically that I am pro waiving the easement fees. I think this is a huge service to our community and the community that we serve. But it's also a huge project, and it's a huge inconvenience. And this detour route is going to be of the utmost importance, because otherwise we are going to be getting emails right, left, and center about this, especially given the duration of the project. So I feel that we need MnDOT at a representative who's not here tonight at our full board meeting before we pass this very important project, very important work. But I think we need to get that in place so that we are being more intentional about this detour instead of just seeing, Third Avenue and Hennepin, which it can still be Third Avenue and Hennepin, but are we enhancing those routes? What exactly is it going to be? I want to be ready for the communications aspect. It's also important to be accurate, and I just want to note there are a couple things in here that I find concerning. The whereas clause that the bridge serves no transportation purpose supported by MnDOT. I don't think we've heard from MnDOT yet in relation to, have we heard from them? Okay, I believe that somebody from MnDOT was going to provide some feedback about pieces of this resolution, if you could update us.
Chair Alper, unfortunately, they were unable to attend this evening, but they did send an email in relation to that particular whereas clause and that phrase. And unfortunately, my printer would not print off, but the email said that that particular phrase that stated the bridge does not serve a transportation purpose, that is incorrect. It should actually read that that it doesn't serve a trunk highway purpose, but that the bridge does serve a purpose in a multimodal transportation. I'm sorry, it does serve a multimodal transportation purpose for bike and pedestrian use. So that should be corrected.
Okay, great. I mean, I would be pro, if it works for our planning committee, of suspending the rules to just completely strike that phrase, that whereas clause. So that's one change. And then in the background materials, it calls this bridge recreational infrastructure, and I think it should just be called transportation infrastructure or just infrastructure. striking the word recreational. It's part of State Bicycle Route 45. It's on the Met Council's Regional Bicycle Transportation Network. And just so you know, for your own, it's here in the Chapter 7 of the Bicycle Pedestrian Investment Plan of the Met Council that this is planned to facilitate bicycling for transportation, which include commute trips to work and school, shopping trips, recreational bicycling is not the focus of this RBT and that mouthful. So I would be pro just striking that whereas clause, and I guess I'm gonna make that motion to suspend the rules to strike recreational and strike that whereas clause, and we'll talk to MnDOT in 2 weeks. Do I need a second in planning?
Okay. Point of order, were you making the motion?
Yes, I motion to suspend the rules.
You move to suspend the rules? And then we'll vote.
Yes, okay, so I don't need a second.
No
This
seconds.
is weird being the chair and making the motion. Okay, all those in favor of suspending the rules, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so that passes. So I would like to make the motion to strike the whereas clause, whereas the bridge serves no transportation purpose supported by MnDOT, and also strike the word recreational in the background material. If you'd like me to tell you where that is, it's going to take a moment.
Is it just 2 strikes
2 strikes.
and no changes?
Those are the main ones I identified, but perhaps there are more that the MnDOT representative said. Okay. It's in the background, I swear. Secretary Ringgold, have you found it? Or will
My
you?
apology.
No, that's okay.
You actually each have a handout at your desk of the email that you sent that articulates these 2 changes.
It's in the second paragraph. There we go, of the background material. Thank you. Sorry to cut you off.
It's okay.
Okay, so I don't need a second for that. And Commissioner Benny, please go ahead.
Just a quick comment, and maybe it's a friendly amendment to your amendment, but could it say recreation and transportation, or transportation and recreation? And the main reason I say that is because the park board does have a role with this surface of the bridge, and I think we do have more of a focus in recreational infrastructure. I'm just saying, I mean, it's a little bit picky.
I think I'd rather just completely strike recreational and just say an important piece of infrastructure, because I only figured this out starting at 11 a.m. today, and perhaps a MnDOT representative who works in this could weigh in deeper.
Point of clarification then, and so the first thing is to get rid of the one whereas clause, makes sense. And did you already then propose just to strike it and just go with the word infrastructure? Is that what you already proposed?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yes. Commissioner Schaefer.
I have a question when we're through with this process.
Okay, Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you. I just want to say I support the new wording, and I just wanted to clarify, just to make sure, we're completely striking the whereas the bridge serves no transportational purpose. We go from whereas the bridge serves significant role straight to whereas MPRB staff recommends. Boom, right? And then we're just striking the word recreational from the second paragraph, second line of that. MnDOT plans to rehabilitate the Stone Arch Bridge, a major piece of infrastructure serving the city and region.
Correct. And the reason is because it's part of this regional bicycle transportation network, and it's been designated Tier 1, which my rudimentary background research this afternoon, I can't even tell you what exactly Tier 1 is, but yes, that's why.
I support that, and I'm ready to vote unless other people have other
Okay,
questions.
great.
Yes, I had one more question for staff. That's okay? Oh, I'm sorry.
it
You're
true that-
voting. Yeah, sorry.
Could we vote and then come back to you? Okay.
I already voted in my mind.
That's all we need. Mental telepathy.
All right, let's vote. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passes, motion passes. So now to the amended resolution, Commissioner Schaefer.
I just had one more question for staff. I was wondering if you did calculate the easement fees, yes or no, and then what they were.
Chair Alper and Commissioner Schaefer, yes, I did. And show you what they are. They were in the background, but I do have one more. How did I just do it?
I know, it's hard.
What am I doing? There it is. So, for parcel 304, very large amount. So, I think you've seen these before, these calculation sheets. So we basically use parcels that are immediately adjacent to wherever they're asking for whether it be temporary or permanent easements or encroachments of those sorts. And so the land values in those areas. The mean average was $149 a square foot on this particular side. And then for temporary easements, we take 10% on an annual basis. So the annual temporary fee, if you were to use per square foot, for that particular amount of square footage, would be $980,000 for an annual basis. But because they only want to use it for 244 days, the fee for this particular parcel would be $655,000. That's for parcel 304. So, but for parcel 306, that land unfortunately is a lot less expensive, and the mean value over there for that land value is $34.57 a square foot. So for the 34,000 some odd square feet that they are asking to use, that on an annual basis would cost $119,000, but because they only wanted to use it for 244 days of the 365, it would be $80,050. And $50.06.
Great, I really appreciate seeing that. And I guess my perspective is I really appreciate that they're taking this project on, and I really appreciated hearing that history of commitment of the Park Board really encouraging this to happen. At the same time, we charge the city of Minneapolis for their stormwater sewer work easement fees, and we charge residents easement fees, et cetera, et cetera. And so this is, when we give a permit, it says, when we give this allow them to use our land, that there should be no detrimental impact, right, to parkland or to the park user. And so there will be detrimental impact to the park user, and there will be probably not to the land from what they say. So my 2 cents is that's a lot of money in easement fees on top of a public project that already is a lot of money. But yet at the same time, in the spirit of honoring our guidelines, I could see the possibility, from my perspective, of making it an instance in this case of reducing the fees for some reason. But yet we're still, in theory, saying we understand there's an impact to. We're going to have a long-range benefit, obviously, but there will be an impact. And there should be some acknowledgement of that impact as we talk to our users and complain about, now I had to reroute from the third bridge, now I have to reroute somewhere else, a different direction. So, it's the nature of trying to take care of our infrastructure, right? But that's my perspective, that yes, those are big numbers, but could we cut them in half and still have a token kind of saying, this is going to impact our system and our users, and we're very appreciative of the work that's going to happen. That's just my 2 cents.
I would like to, if there, Commissioner Menz, I'll go to you.
Hi, thank you. I'm not on this committee, but to piggyback on what Commissioner Schaefer just said, so what if there was some sort of, we don't charge the fees unless there's a trigger for the work taking a significant amount of time? I don't know, we've thought about that in the past. I'm not sure what MnDOT's timeframe is for, it seems like a very complicated project that could overrun and take a long time. But maybe there's some sort of trigger where the easement fee would then kick in if it takes more than 3 years or something like that. So that's something to consider, and I don't know, I'm sure that you all have probably considered that, but consider it, put it out there.
Please go ahead.
Chair Alper, Commissioners, so over the last 5 years of working with MnDOT, either on 3rd Avenue or on Stone Arch Bridge, staff always saw the improvements that they were making, the renovation of this really important piece of regional trail for us, more than covering any easement fee that we would charge. To pick up on what Councilor Rice has said, I don't know where we would start to find $22 million to renovate this bridge if we had to. And MnDOT has been very good to work with through this process. Is it difficult? Yes. It's an important piece of infrastructure, so it's going to be difficult. But staff never, in the last 5 years, even considered thinking of charging them for a temporary or construction easement. A betterment of $22 million. Now I'll just say that figure and just let you know that it's a public bid process. We don't know what that price will come in at, and MnDOT's going to cover that full cost. Nothing is coming back to us. So I just want to make sure, Chair Alper, that you understand where staff came from here over the last 5 years, and commissioners understand the work that we've done. So thank you.
Commissioner Benny.
Thank you, Co-Chair Alper. Well, I guess I would also then say, I think that there's another model too where it isn't as collaborative or cooperative, and there's a cost share model where the park board would have to also participate in the construction costs to some extent. I guess, but I really see your point, Commissioner Schaefer, about this is our guideline, and we do charge, homeowners for encroachments and things like that. So what I would say is, I think that this is maybe, I think waiving the fee is the right thing to do, so long as there might be, as Commissioner Menn said, some kind of mechanism to, not let this go on forever, so that we could have some triggers maybe at some point. And I'm just thinking of the light rail project, unanticipated scenarios, and particularly because, I don't know that there are a lot of stone arch structural repair, experts out there. So this could get a little weird. So that would be the only thing I would say, is that we would just say we're very strongly interested in the timelines not creeping out multiple, way out. But that this project makes some sense to waive a fee.
Okay, I see Council Rice has his light on. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Alper. I mean, this discussion is really important for the board, and I appreciate the perspective. I know that when this came up in 2018, and we were able to secure, and really it was at this board's urging, that I still remember, it was Commissioner Vita, Commissioner Cowgill, Commissioner Meyer, and I think they were the three. They had a press conference on the east side of the bridge. It got a lot of coverage. It was the last week of session. They were talking about the bridge was in dire need of repair. There'd been some preliminary work, and they were saying the money was needed to restore the bridge. That was a $10 million ask. It was $1 million. They got it. But at the time, it was very political. And then we got the $1 million, and then Commissioner Zelli took $10 million out of the Mercy account, which was an account that the commissioner has jurisdiction over for railroad bridges, and he basically took almost every penny in that account to fix this bridge. And it got very political, like they're taking money, and Minneapolis was gobbling up all the money for the entire state. And I understand what Commissioner Schaefer is raising is an issue. But it was like the park board was asking the state to step in and make sure the bridge got fixed. You may want to think about between now and 2 weeks about what the optics of that looks like. Like, we asked them to fix the bridge, it's $22 million, and oh, by the way, give us $800,000 for your trouble. I mean, it may incite other legislators to say, look what they did. This was like not a bait and switch, but we only did it to get the money. And I think the history of this would be, this was not a bridge that MnDOT ever wanted. I was in the room when the legislators at the time called the Commissioner of Transportation in. Hennepin County, the city didn't want the bridge. Mayor Fraser was asked, did you want the bridge? And he said no. Superintendent Fisher said, do you want the bridge? And he said no. And the only one who would take the bridge under duress was basically MnDOT. And I think they're very proud of it. They've maintained it as, I think someone said, it's kind of become the symbol of the state in part. I just think that this is a pretty unique partnership. The Southwest LRT, that isn't our LRT line, or County Road 81 is not the Minneapolis Park Board 81. The Stone Arch Bridge is really the park boards. I mean, we are the 99.9% prime beneficiary of that bridge now, because the people who go over that bridge are connecting on either side of the bridge is Minneapolis Park Board land, and they traverse the bridge coming and going. And just a perspective. And now, I'm not saying I'm right. I might just be some old fuddy-duddy out there that's remembering things that happened in the last century, but at least I wanted to hear that before you take any votes.
Okay, thanks for that. I have a couple extra additional questions. Again, getting back to the detour, getting back to preparation, communications, engagement, given the length of this closure. And I would like to feel assured that we are ready for this. So I'm curious, do you anticipate after this resolution, will there be any other resolutions related to this construction that will be coming our way? Basically, is this our opportunity, this resolution, to discuss with MnDOT regarding what's, their plan?
Chair Alper, as far as other approvals coming to the board for this project, no. However, staff work, we will have staff that will be at the weekly construction meetings. So there are issues that come up, whether it's our events that we're having on half the bridge or we don't have them on half the bridge, the detour complaints, if we have complaints about the detour route, those are things that we will follow up with MnDOT staff. So in as much as, yes, this is your only opportunity from an agreement and a board action standpoint, just so you know, we don't stop our interaction with them.
Of course,
right?
I didn't think
Yeah, it starts, I mean, actually, this is the easy part. The hard part is all of your calls that will come down to me or to Tom Johnson and permits, and then we have to, I send Tom out there and, he bangs his fist and things get done right, et cetera. So there's a lot of work that we have to do behind the scenes.
Yeah, great. And I know you're working hard, but I thank you for clarifying that this is our board action. And I would like to be more proactive about engagement and communication requirements as part of this. So I'm going to give it some thought over the next couple weeks, and I hope staff will as well. I'm happy to work with another commissioner on this, happy to talk to MnDOT, but I would really like, given the scope of this project, I would really like to have a MnDOT representative like we've had at other meetings for other projects at our next meeting. It would be just but a drop in the project bucket. Would that be possible?
Chair Alford, they're probably listening to the meeting right now, and maybe they're hearing and wishing that they had come. They had other engagement, family things that happened, right?
Absolutely, and our 4-hour, 5-6 hour meetings are
and
challenging.
the MnDOT staff that they have assigned to the project I mean, they are top-notch people. So we will express to them some of the concerns, make sure that they can answer those questions. They've had community engagement on both sides of the river, working with at different events. They've had special events, so they've tried to, talk about it. They have a consultant that's will be just sending out, updating the website, sending out information, et cetera. So this is not a small project to them. They're taking it very seriously. They understand that the communication they do within Minneapolis is different than maybe in other projects or other parts of the state. So they know what they need to do, and they've assured us. And we've talked to some of those consultants. There'll be links that we'll have on our website to their website, right, et cetera. So, but we'll ask Amber.
It's Amber. Oh, okay, Amber Dahlman. Great.
So she will be. I'm sure she'll want to attend, or
Yes,
have their engineer attend if she can't.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I think it's really, everything, what I have seen is that these construction projects, being on the planning committee or planning commission, everything always seems to catch people by surprise. What? I didn't know about this. I just got the notice. So whatever we can do, I understand, totally get it, doing community engagement beforehand, but I mean like right beforehand and ongoing, not maybe engagement isn't the right word, but communication around what's happening. I just feel is really important because I would like to be prepared. I like to plan ahead. So, okay, any other thoughts on this? Commissioner Schaefer.
Sure, I'll just say one other thing, and, if MnDOT, it would be really helpful for them to maybe speak to the timeline, and, maybe we can have, I support this direction and respects the staff's opinion on this, and, but I do think it would be interesting to hear their timeline, and if there's any concerns, and maybe we have, amendment in the wing that's ready if we need it, but I think they would be able to tell us what they anticipate forthcoming.
Lovely. Let's take a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes, and with that, I will adjourn the planning committee.
The time is 7:46, and I'd like to call the Administration and Finance Committee to order. Secretary Ringel, can you please take the roll?
Commissioner Musich, absent. Commissioner Menz.
Here.
Vice President Crudup.
Here.
Co-Chair Thompson.
Here.
Co-Chair Schaefer.
Here.
You have a quorum.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? May I have a motion to move the 2 minutes that are listed in our agenda?
I make a motion to move the minutes.
Point of information, are we supposed to strike something from the agenda?
Appreciate that.
Oh,
We were.
Yes, we need to strike the fees and charges study report.
I would like to move to amend the agenda.
All those in favor of amending the agenda, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The agenda is amended.
Would like, to strike that, yes, thank you.
The agenda is amended to remove the fees and charges study report. Thank you, Co-Chair Thompson. Is there any other procedure we need here, Secretary Ringel?
Co-Chair Schaefer, we should vote on that.
Great.
And then we should vote on the amended agenda.
Great. All those in favor of the amended agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
And all those in favor of the agenda as amended, please say aye. Aye. Great. Vice President Crudup, could you please move the minutes again?
Sure. I moved the minutes of August 17th for the Admin and Finance Committee, as well as the minutes for August 16th Finance Committee meeting.
Great. All those in favor of the approval of these 2 sets of minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. We have one action item tonight. If I can have a committee member, please move this resolution.
I'll move Resolution 2023-163. Resolution approving a memorandum of understanding for the eventual acquisition of 2648 Marshall Street Northeast within Above the Falls Regional Park.
Great. Thank you. Can we have does anyone like to have just some brief information about this? Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Director Arvidsson.
Certainly. Thank you, Chair Schaefer, committee members. I just have a couple of simple slides that are sort of location-oriented, and then just a little bit of background about the property. So the subject property at 2648 Marshall Street is outlined in the blue square that you see on your screen there in front of you. It is on the east side of the river within Above the Falls Regional Park Master Plan boundary, just south of Marshall Terrace Park and north of Lowry Avenue. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here because part of the reason for the MOU before you and some of staff's recommendations on this have to do with the particular location of this site. So you can see the long skinny site is a residential property that has a duplex out by Marshall Street. Just to the north of it is a high-density apartment complex, which actually has a parking lot almost all the way to the river with a huge wall. And to the south, there's a series of parcels there, which is Marshall Cement. So this small residential parcel is actually sitting in between two sites for which there's no imminent likely purchase for us and will be very difficult to immediately transform into parkland. You can see, however, we are pretty close to Marshall Terrace Park, just a couple lots to the north. The owners of this site, Andy Wattenhofer, who is here with us tonight, and Don Brentnall, are interested in actually building a single-family home additionally on this site, and it would be closer to the river than the duplex that sits there today. As they've worked through their city approval process, there's been some historic and current community concern about the construction of new residential units within an area that is guided for park and within our defined boundary of Above the Falls Regional Park. Andy and Don have stated to me and publicly that their hope is to actually be the last private owners of this parcel. They do own it now, and are working to create a space that they can continue to live in for a period of time and then to see that become parkland. So the MOU before you today essentially commits ourselves, the park board, and Andy and Don, the owners, to a timeline for developing a formal agreement that could look at a transition of this property to parkland in a variety of different creative ways, which we're pretty good at using within Above the Falls. There's really three reasons why staff think that maybe a long-term view on this particular property is the right approach rather than an immediate purchase. One of those is that the owners are currently stewarding the land and have already improved some of the shoreline and intend to continue to do so. So in effect, there's some sort of, in a way, park enhancement happening even while they live there. The second reason stated is that I think it'll be very difficult to immediately incorporate this as parkland, particularly because of those two adjacent parcels, which are very heavy lifts for us. And then the third one is that though we have some funding from the state to do acquisition funded by LCCMR within Above the Falls Regional Park, we explicitly cannot use that funding for habitable residential structures. And this would fall under that category because of the duplex that exists on that site. So we currently don't have a good funding stream to even make Mr. Wattenhofer and Ms. Brentnell an offer. So staff is recommending entering into an MOU, which is about a 9-month process for us to then come back to you with a more formal purchase agreement of some kind. So that's a basic overview of it. And as I mentioned, Mr. Wattenhofer is here tonight if you have any questions that you'd like to answer or that you'd like to have answered by him. Chair Schaefer, I stand for questions.
Great. Thank you, Director Arvidsson. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you so much, Co-Chair Schaefer. I don't have a question. I just would like to thank you both for sort of outside-the-box thinking on these things. And I just know that that's how things end up changing and moving in different directions. So I wasn't sure the background on this, so I appreciate that context. Thank you.
Commissioner Menz.
So the duplex will stay
Chair
Even though the
Schaefer,
construction of a new single residence home will be closer to the river?
Chair Schaefer, Commissioner Menz, that's my understanding. I believe the applicant is proposing that the duplex stay and that an additional structure be built. And that 3-unit cluster is allowable under the city's zoning right now, and I'm sure Mr. Wattenhover can speak a bit more to that if he'd like to, or if you'd like him to.
Thanks.
All right, any other questions? All right, we will then take the vote on Resolution 2023-163. All those in favor of moving this forward to full board, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion and resolution action carries. I will call the Admin and Finance Committee adjourned.
Oh, bam.
4:08 p.m. That feels like a record. Pretty good. You don't even have your park work.
I like your dress, Alicia.
Thank
you. We both picked a dress tonight, it looks like.
Yeah. Probably the last days. The last days of.
Who's going to NRPA?
I
I know you're not.
I'm